Chapter 2856. Although the Sword Realm did not have much of a relationship with the Rat Realm, Insect Realm, and Ant Realm, they were still living together. However, as living beings from the 3,000 realms, it was only right for them to join forces and deal with Luo Jun, one of the 10 great demons. Lin Xuanjun thought of what Luo Jun had said to him and his surname. He could not help but think of some other things and could no longer attack him. Su Zimo naturally would not attack Luo Jun. However, they represented the Sword Realm after all. At this time, their every move in the demon battlefield was being watched by everyone outside. They could not openly join forces with Luo Jun to fight against the true spirit experts of the other realms. In this way, it would definitely cause gossip and bring endless trouble to the Sword Realm. Against 3 supreme true spirits, can he win? Lin Xuanjun looked at the battle and asked softly. Su Zimo frowned and did not say anything. He believed that with Luo Jun's battle strength, if he faced a true spirit, he should have an 80% chance of winning. But now, with 3 true spirits joining forces, Luo Jun was in a difficult situation. Luo Jun's only chance was that the true spirits of the 3 realms would not immediately release their supreme divine abilities. A supreme divine ability was the greatest trump card of a true spirit expert. In a dangerous place like the demon battlefield, one would be extremely cautious when releasing a supreme divine ability. Moreover, with 3 true spirits joining forces, the 3 of them believed that they had the absolute upper hand, so there was no need to use their supreme divine abilities. The dozen or so sinful spirit sword cultivators who were originally beside Luo Jun also stepped forward and fought side by side with Luo Jun. Luo Jun's sword Dao was abnormally sharp. It was different from any of the 9 great sword Daos of the Sword Realm. Instead, he had comprehended his own unique sword Dao. Lin Xuanjun might not be able to see it, but Su Zimo had been taught by the great Emperor of the All Heaven. He could see the shadow of the great Luo sword manual from Luo Jun's sword Dao. In just a few breaths, the battlefield was abnormally tragic. Corpses were everywhere. On Luo Jun's side, he blocked the attack of hundreds of true spirits led by the Insect Realm, Rat Realm, and Ant Realm. The Insect, Rat, and Ant Realm's supreme true spirits saw that their clansmen had suffered heavy casualties, and the pressure on them increased greatly. They all transformed into their true forms and attacked Luo Jun crazily. Luo Jun's sword Dao was simple and crude, it did not have any fancy moves. Often, when the sword stabbed out, it would be aimed at the vital points, forcing the opponent to defend and save. Even when facing the besieging of 3 great supreme true spirits, Luo Jun could still occupy the absolute upper hand. However, the 10+ sword cultivators of the sinful spirits were unable to resist the attacks of a few hundred true spirits. They were unable to hold on and were forced to retreat. If Luo Jun wanted to protect these sinful spirit sword cultivators as much as possible, he would have to bear the brunt of the attacks from the true spirits. As time passed, the supreme true spirits of the Insect, Rat, and Ant realms gradually turned the situation around and took the initiative. Wounds began to appear on Luo Jun's body. Su Zimo frowned slightly. He naturally didn't want to see Luo Jun die here, but he didn't have a suitable opportunity to act. At this time, a violent energy fluctuation came from not far away. It was not inferior to the battle here. The sky over there was burning with raging flames, turning it completely red. Roar! Immediately after, a dragon roar that reverberated through the world sounded. Although it was slightly immature, it was still incomparably dignified. Dragons? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. In the dragon world, Long Li led 10 true dragons into the fiend battlefield. If he was not wrong, the dragon roar earlier on should have been released by Long Li. Furthermore, judging from the emotions transmitted by the dragon roar, Long Li seemed to have encountered an extremely strong opponent. Su Zimo's gaze flickered and a plan popped up in his mind. He pondered for a moment and said, "Let's go over there and take a look." Before he finished his sentence, Su Zimo had already moved and sped towards the direction of the dragon roar. Lin Xuanjun glanced at the battlefield on Luo Jun's side and grit his teeth as well, following behind Su Zimo. Even without the matter on Luo Jun's side, Su Zimo would not sit idly by if he knew that Long Li was in danger in the fiend battlefield. Before long, Su Zimo arrived at another battlefield. The battle on this side was a head-on collision between two super great worlds. One of them was naturally the dragon world led by Long Li. The other side was from the Wutong world. More than 10 true dragons, true phoenixes and true phoenixes from both sides were fighting. The most eye-catching thing was the battle between Long Li and the two figures from the Wutong world. Long Li had already revealed his true form. He was a silver-blue divine dragon, and he constantly let out dragon roars. He was entangled with a divine phoenix and a divine phoenix. Long Li's body seemed to be shrouded in a layer of frost. As his dragon breath spewed out, a cold air spread and could freeze thousands of miles. On the other hand, the divine phoenix and divine phoenix burned with raging flames, blocking Long Li's breath. One ice and one fire, one cold and one hot. Two extreme powers collided on the battlefield, causing the ground to quake and rocks to fly everywhere. Long Li was clearly at a disadvantage. Furthermore, from the looks of it, both sides seemed to have released supreme divine powers in the surrounding battlefield. Otherwise, there would not have been such large-scale destruction. Beneath the 3 top-tier living beings, everything was reduced to ruins. In the battle, Long Li transformed back into his human form and panted heavily. Gripping the heavenly token, he was prepared to leave the fiend battlefield. The divine phoenix and divine phoenix opposite him transformed back into their human forms at the same time. A man and a woman stood side by side. Among them, the man had short, fiery red hair that soared into the skies as though there was a ball of flames above his head. He had long, narrow phoenix eyes and held a scarlet spear that burned with flames in his hands. As for the woman beside him, she also had wavy, scarlet hair that draped casually over her shoulders. She had a peerless appearance and held a fiery red bow in one hand and a fiery red arrow in the other. The two supreme true spirits of the Wutong world in this generation, Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden. Fufu. Fengzi chuckled and waved the phoenix feather spear in his hands gently. Long Li, I've said long ago that you're still too young and not suitable to come to the fiend battlefield. That's right. Phoenix Maiden smiled as well. Little girl, hurry and go home. It's too dangerous here. Long Li's petite face was filled with indignation. However, she knew that she only had a single path of retreat now that she was targeted by the two of them: leave the fiend battlefield. Right then, a voice sounded from not far away. The two of you can still be so righteous when you're ganging up on one person? Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden frowned at the same time and turned to look. Not far away, a man and a woman were speeding over. The man had black hair and was dressed in a green robe. He had delicate features and was the one who had just spoken. When Long Li saw this person, she was overjoyed and could not help but smile. She waved over and said, "Brother, Su Zhu." Su Zhu? Fengzi frowned slightly. He had obviously heard of Su Zimo's name, but there was no fear on his face. Chapter 2857. Su Zhu. Fengzi spoke. The two of us have always worked together against enemies. Whether you're alone, 2 or 10, the two of us will deal with you. That's right. Phoenix Maiden added, if you want to interfere, you can join forces with Long Li. The two of us will still deal with you. Indeed, the two of them were not lying about that. The two of them had cultivated together since they were young and were telepathic. Their teamwork and tacit understanding allowed them to unleash combat strength that far exceeded their own. Even if two true spirits joined forces, it would be difficult for them to gain the upper hand against the two of them. Su Zimo chuckled and said, I have some ties with this fellow Taoist Long Li. Since we've met today, I'd like to see what the two of you are capable of. Lin Xuanjun had originally intended to join forces with Su Zimo. However, Su Zimo glanced sideways and whispered, go and take care of Long Li later. There are many evil fiends and sinful spirits nearby and they might take advantage of the situation to attack. Lin Xuanjun's spirit consciousness moved and he could not help but frown. True enough. The commotion here attracted the two of them over. Many evil fiends and sinful spirits were also gathering over, hiding nearby and eyeing covetously. The number of evil fiends and sinful spirits nearby increased. However, there were only 10 people on Long Li's side and all of them were covered in injuries. Long Li had just released a supreme mystic ability and it was equivalent to him losing his greatest reliance. He might truly be in danger against the attacks of so many evil fiends and sinful spirits. You're alone, however, Lin Xuanjun was still worried about Su Zimo. If she went to protect Long Li's group, it would mean that Su Zimo would have to face the combined attacks of Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden alone. Furthermore, the combined attacks of the two of them were the most difficult to defend against among the true spirits. Don't worry. Su Zimo replied with a firm tone, these two can't hurt me. Hearing Su Zimo's relaxed tone, Lin Xuanjun felt slightly relieved. He nodded and sped towards Long Li. Brother Su Zhu, be careful of their weapons. At this moment, Long Li's voice rang out in Su Zimo's mind. Fengzi has a powerful body and uses the Phoenix Feather Spear. He specializes in close combat. Phoenix Maiden wields the Phoenix Bone Bow. Huang Yujian, search for openings in the distance and wait for an opportunity to strike. Su Zimo nodded slightly. Sush. Su Zimo did not exchange pleasantries with Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden. Raising his hand and closing his sword fingers, he slashed out 2 streams of heaven-slaying sword chi in the direction of the two of them. As a supreme true spirit, Fengzi no longer had any qualms when he saw Su Zimo strike first. He transformed into a streak of flames and charged toward Su Zimo. Sush! The Phoenix Feather Spear burned with raging flames as it tore through the air. Accompanied by a series of phoenix cries, it pierced toward Su Zimo's head. Su Zimo had a calm expression and was about to retreat when his spirit perception alerted him. Su Zimo caught a glimpse from the corner of his eye. Far away, Phoenix Maiden stood in the air with the Phoenix Bone Bow in her hands fully drawn. Huang Yujian was already knocked and aimed at Su Zimo's location. To be precise, Phoenix Maiden had already determined Su Zimo's escape route. If she shot that arrow, she would seal off his escape route. The two of them are truly telepathic. It's rare for them to be able to cooperate to this extent. A thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. However, his movements did not change as he continued retreating to avoid the sharpest edge of the Phoenix Feather Spear. A scarlet streak of flames tore through the void, leaving a burn mark in midair. There was no way Phoenix Maiden would miss out on this opportunity. Huang Yujian had already locked onto Su Zimo's escape route. As long as Su Zimo retreated, he would definitely collide into her Huang Yujian. The cooperation between the two of them had long been ingrained into their bones and there was no need for any communication. It was as though they were born together, as though they were conjoined. Su Zimo continued retreating. However, after dodging the sharpest edge of the Phoenix Feather Spear, he extended his palm and sliced gently at the side of the Phoenix Feather Spear. Su Zimo did not use his blood chi for that palm strike and only used 50% of his strength. However, it was enough to change the original trajectory of the Phoenix Feather Spear. The body of the Phoenix Feather Spear trembled and deviated slightly, streaking past Su Zimo's side. At the same time, Huang Yujian's flames arrived and struck the tip of the Phoenix Feather Spear without missing a single bit. Clang! The Phoenix Feather Spear and Huang Yujian's 2 pure yang spirit treasures collided beside Su Zimo's body. With a loud explosion, flames soared to the heavens. The 2 pure yang spirit treasures had both erupted with their strongest strength, but they were unable to harm Su Zimo in the slightest. Instead, Su Zimo had borrowed the force of the attack and cleverly resolved it. The entire process happened in the blink of an eye. Although it seemed simple, it showed Su Zimo's precise control of the situation and timing. Only when one's strength was absolutely overwhelming would one be so confident. Su Zimo laughed loudly and continued retreating in the direction he came from. He shook his head and said, Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden, so this is all there is to it. Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden had never been provoked like this before and they were both enraged. Fengzi's blood chi surged. Holding the Phoenix Feather Spear, he charged towards Su Zimo once more. Phoenix Maiden also drew her Phoenix Bone Bow and followed closely behind. Far away from Su Zimo, She stared fixedly at him, ready to shoot a fatal arrow at any moment. However, Su Zimo's movement technique was extremely fast, and he was also graceful and agile. A pair of ethereal wings grew from his back, and his position was unpredictable, causing Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden to be unable to lock onto him for a moment. Fengzi could not help but feel annoyed when he saw that Su Zimo was not fighting with them. He could not help but mock. I've long heard that the peak master of Sword World's 9th Sword Peak had once killed 10 true Spirit Realm experts of the Heavenly Eye race single-handedly. I thought that he was invincible. To think that I would be so disappointed today. So, he's just a cowardly rat who only knows how to scurry away. Su Zhu, you cultivate the Sword Dao and should be advancing courageously. Why are you retreating again and again? Phoenix Maiden berated as well. Su Zimo did not reply and merely smiled faintly. In that short period of time, the three of them were rapidly approaching another battlefield. Over here, the true spirit experts of the Worm, Rat, and Ant realms were still fighting against Luo Jun and the other sinful spirits. Seeing that they could not take down the enemy after a long time and suffered heavy casualties, the supreme true spirits of the Worm, Rat, and Ant realms were prepared to use their supreme mystiques. The three of them did not believe that they could not kill this plain-clothed swordsman with their 3 supreme mystiques. Right then, Su Zimo suddenly paused and burst forth with Heaven's Feet, earth-traversing golden light, and other movement techniques. He sped up once more and charged towards Phoenix Maiden's position. Fengzi's expression changed starkly. Compared to him, Phoenix Maiden was not adept at melee combat. As for Phoenix Maiden's Phoenix Bone Bow, Huang Yujian would not be able to unleash its original power if she were to engage in melee combat. Swoosh! When Phoenix Maiden saw Su Zimo charging over, she panicked and shot another arrow. However, Su Zimo dodged it easily. She only had a single shot. Before she could knock the second Huang Yujian, Su Zimo had already arrived before her. His black hair fluttered and his gaze was like a torch. He was like an unsheathed sword that was about to slice her into two. Chapter 2858. Before Su Zimo truly attacked, the sharpness emanating from his body was already enough to cause the Phoenix Maiden immense pain and a tearing sensation. There was no hint of panic in the Phoenix Maiden's eyes. Her blood chi was already channeled to its limits and ignited. As though she was bathed in blazing flames, she conjured hand seals repeatedly with both hands. Swoosh! Behind her, the bloodline phenomenon of a divine phoenix rose as though it was corporeal. Scorching lava spilled from its body as it reared its head and roared into the skies, glaring at Su Zimo with a death glare. At the same time, Fengzi's figure suddenly appeared beside the Phoenix Maiden. This was not a teleportation technique. It was difficult to release teleportation divine powers in such a chaotic battlefield. This secret skill was more like a unique connection method between Fengzi and the Phoenix Maiden. When one party was in danger, the other party could appear out of thin air and join forces to fight against the enemy. Fengzi arrived beside the Phoenix Maiden. His bloodline was already channeled to its limits and the bloodline phenomenon of a divine phoenix was conjured. The two bloodline phenomenons of the divine phoenix and divine phoenix intertwined and spiraled in midair, emitting an incomparably scorching heat. In fact, the sharp sword chi released by Su Zimo was melted and turned into nothingness. Fengzi and the Phoenix Maiden had already vanished. Opposite Su Zimo, there were only 2 gigantic fireballs left, resembling a pair of blazing suns that were inches away. However, the pair of blazing suns were still converging and fusing rapidly. You're still far from being able to challenge us single-handedly. Fengzi and the Phoenix Maiden's voices sounded at the same time. As the 2 fireballs fused rapidly, the bloodline phenomenons of the Divine Phoenix and Divine Phoenix behind them fused and collided as though they were about to fuse together. Phoenix! Su Zimo's expression was unchanged and he merely narrowed his eyes as that thought flashed through his mind. Both phoenixes and dragon phoenixes were taboo existences. However, Su Zimo dismissed that thought before long. This aura was even stronger than the forbidden phoenix. Moreover, this aura gave him a trace of familiarity. This was the holy beast vermilion bird. The fusion of their bloodline phenomena had actually transformed into the image of the holy beast vermilion bird. This was their true killing move. With this technique, the two of them could once again summon the vermilion bird's heavenly fire and fight against any true spirit. This was equivalent to the two of them controlling 3 supreme divine powers. Hence, the two of them were so confident. Among the supreme true spirits, not many could gain any advantage in the hands of these two. Su Zimo sensed the terrifying aura coming from the other side, but he didn't dodge. Instead, he recalled the secret art the vermilion bird holy soul had imparted to him on the hell-suppressing cauldron. He had already comprehended this secret art back when he was in the mystic origin realm. He had comprehended the milky white Nanming fire. However, in reality, Su Zimo knew very well that the Nanming primordial fire was not the end of the inheritance of this secret technique. If the Nanming fire could improve further, it would become the vermilion bird heavenly fire. However, he hadn't had the opportunity to come into contact with the godly phoenix and the godly phoenix clan. Now, as he sensed the vermilion bird avatar that was about to transform, Su Zimo compared it to the secret art the vermilion bird holy soul had imparted to him. The parts that were originally difficult to understand suddenly became clear. "Don't blame us if you don't leave now," Fengzi and the Phoenix Maiden scolded. The two bloodline phenomena merged completely and transformed into a crimson bird. Its eyes were extremely sharp and cold as it stared at Su Zimo, who was not far away. The vermilion bird suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a stream of crimson flames that instantly engulfed Su Zimo's figure. In the void, the terrifying power of the supreme divine powers filled the air. This was the heavenly fire of the vermilion bird. At the same time, on the battlefield not far away, the battle between the supreme true spirits of the 3 realms and Luo Jun had also reached its climax. As if attracted by the supreme divine powers beside them, the supreme true spirits of the 3 realms on the battlefield also unleashed their supreme divine powers at the same time. Space-time imprisonment. Eternal damnation. Eternal darkness. This was the 3,000 worlds. In the heaven realm, only Wu Dao's original body had comprehended the supreme divine powers of eternal damnation. However, there were countless living beings in the 3,000 worlds. The supreme divine powers of eternal damnation had been passed down for many years. There would always be living beings of other races who would comprehend it by chance. Which one of those who could grow into a supreme true spirit wasn't gifted and had endless opportunities? Which one of them wasn't the darling of heaven and earth and was envied by the heavens? Now, this group of darlings of heaven and earth had gathered in the evil demon battlefield. One could imagine how intense the battle would be. Space-time imprisonment, eternal darkness, eternal damnation. Each of the 3 supreme divine powers was not to be underestimated. Among them, space-time imprisonment could completely lock a cultivator. As for the eternal darkness, if one couldn't tear the darkness apart, they would be completely engulfed by the darkness and become a part of it. The damage of eternal damnation was even more unparalleled. Luo Jun's expression was grim. He only had a single supreme divine power, the immortal slaying sword. With the immortal slaying sword, he could only neutralize a single supreme divine power. The battle was ever-changing and wouldn't give him any time to think. In a flash, Luo Jun channeled his essence spirit and condensed a blood-red sword with a murderous aura between his palms, breaking through the descending space-time shackles. That was his choice. Among the 3 supreme divine powers, the space-time imprisonment seemed to cause the least damage. However, if he allowed the space-time shackles to restrain him, he would be at the mercy of the other party and die without a doubt. If he severed the space-time shackles and regained his freedom, he might have a chance to escape. Of course, it was extremely difficult to escape from the shroud of the 2 supreme divine powers. On one side, darkness attacked. On the other, eternal calamity enveloped. In the blink of an eye, Luo Jun was in danger. At the same time, on the battlefield not far away, the vermilion bird heavenly fire burned Su Zimo continuously and had already drowned his figure. However, to the surprise of Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden, Su Zimo did not resist or release any supreme divine powers throughout the entire process. He allowed the vermilion bird heavenly fire to envelop his body. What shocked the two of them even more was that the vermilion bird heavenly fire did not burn Su Zimo to death immediately. Within the vermilion bird heavenly fire, Su Zimo's vitality was still exuberant. Moreover, his body seemed to be undergoing some kind of shocking transformation. The vermilion bird heavenly fire contained countless runic Tao techniques. For ordinary living beings, such runic Tao techniques were fatal. However, for Su Zimo, who had obtained the inheritance of the vermilion bird, this was an opportunity. An opportunity that could allow the Nanmingli fire to transform into the vermilion bird heavenly fire. Of course, in the eyes of others, this process was incomprehensible. This was simply playing with fire. However, one of the Tao techniques Su Zimo was most proficient in was the Tao of fire. Chapter 2859. Prior to this, Su Zimo controlled the immortal, Buddhist and fiend Tao fires and the Nanmingli fire that represented the demonic Tao. Coupled with his essence spirit fire, he could conjure the killing move of the Pentadi Tao fire. Therefore, when the vermilion bird heavenly fire descended, Su Zimo secretly conjured the immortal, Buddhist and fiend Tao fires to defend against it. At the same time, he used the Nanmingli fire to slowly come into contact with the vermilion bird heavenly fire to sense the differences within. The reason why Su Zimo dared to be so careless was naturally because the three Tao fires were only the first layer of protection. His second layer of protection came from the grade 12 creation Qinglian's body. Even if the vermilion bird heavenly fire seeped into his bloodline, it would be extinguished by the grade 12 Qinglian's bloodline. Su Zimo wanted to hide the secret of Qinglian's true body for the time being and naturally did not want to use her bloodline. However, if any power seeped into Qinglian's body, he did not have to care. Qinglian's bloodline would naturally purify and cleanse the power silently. Therefore, under the gaze of Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden, Su Zimo, who was enveloped by the vermilion bird heavenly fire, was not injured at all. Instead, his aura grew stronger. He seemed to be absorbing the power of the vermilion bird heavenly fire and growing rapidly. How was that possible? Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden widened their eyes in disbelief. The two of them were telepathic, and with a single thought, they channeled the vermilion bird conjured by their bloodline phenomenons and charged towards Su Zimo. Swoosh! The vermilion bird charged into the flames around Su Zimo but did not cause much of a blaze. After a momentary pause, the flames around Su Zimo intensified and the color of the flames changed continuously, eventually turning scarlet. That aura was no different from the vermilion bird heavenly fire. Pissed. Feng Zi and Huang Nu sucked in a breath of cold air. He had comprehended the vermilion bird heavenly fire? Not only that, but the vermilion bird heavenly fire on the other side seemed to be a little different from what they controlled. It was mixed with some other kind of power. This change caused the vermilion bird skyfire to become even more terrifying, violent, and unstable. Boom! This ball of vermilion bird heavenly fire suddenly exploded in front of Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden. Countless sparks flew in all directions. Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden were the first to bear the brunt of the attack. They were hit by the flames and were instantly sent flying. They fell heavily to the ground from mid-air and vomited blood. Of course, the two of them did not suffer the greatest damage. More flames, intentionally or unintentionally, rushed to the battlefield at the side, directly turning another battlefield upside down. Under the pincer attack of eternal night and eternal damnation, Luo Jun had nowhere to run. But at this moment, an earth-shattering sound came from not far away. The next moment, flames soared into the sky. A large expanse of scarlet flames, like a tsunami of magma, surged and rushed into the darkness of the eternal night. These lava flames contained the supreme divine ability of the vermilion bird heavenly fire. They emitted blazing red flames and tore apart the darkness. There was also a portion of the lava flames that rushed to eternal damnation on the other side, resisting the 10,000 heavenly tribulations and letting out sizzling sounds. The supreme true spirits of the insect, rat, and ant realms were not prepared and were burned by this ball of heavenly fire. The army of several hundred true spirits was shattered into pieces by the impact, and they were utterly defeated. Of course, Luo Jun was also attacked by some of the heavenly fire. However, compared to eternal night and eternal damnation, the damage these heavenly fire did to him was negligible. He blocked it easily with his sword Dao divine abilities and bloodline secret techniques. In the chaos, Luo Jun's gaze shifted and locked onto the three supreme true spirits. He charged over with his sword again. Without their supreme divine abilities, their greatest reliance, even if the three supreme true spirits joined forces, they could not block Luo Jun's sword. The beings of the insect, rat, and ant realms were best at gathering their clansmen and bullying others with numbers. In terms of combat strength, the supreme true spirits of the three realms were ranked last on the war merit Jade Steel. The three of them had already suffered quite a bit of damage, and now that they came into contact with Luo Jun, they showed signs of defeat. Unable to resist, they took out their tokens and turned into streaks of light that fled the fiendish battlefield. The remaining true spirits did not dare to stay after seeing the three supreme true spirits leave the battlefield. They all left. The battle between the supreme true spirits of the 3,000 worlds and the fiendish battlefield ended in chaos. On the Sky Tribute Plaza, the kings of the 3,000 worlds had gathered here to watch the battle. They were all dumbfounded by this scene and could not recover for a while. It was not until the supreme true spirits of the insect, rat, and ant realms and the other true spirits retreated from the fiendish battlefield that the Sky Tribute Plaza became noisy. What's going on? Su Zhu of the Sword World is not dead and has comprehended something in the Vermilion Bird Heavenly Fire? From the looks of it, he must have comprehended the second combat art, Vermilion Bird Heavenly Fire. He's so young but he's so bold. He dares risk being burned to ashes by the Vermilion Bird Heavenly Fire to comprehend this combat art. Under everyone's gazes, Su Zimo stood in the air in the fiend battlefield. His entire body was bathed in the scarlet Vermilion Bird Heavenly Fire and he was undergoing the baptism of a supreme divine power. This baptism was immensely beneficial to one's bloodline, body, and nascent spirit. Even one's cultivation realm would improve noticeably. To comprehend two combat arts in the Kongming realm of the true first realm, this kid's future is truly limitless. The Sword World has given birth to a genius who can rival Great Emperor Immortal. If he grows up smoothly and doesn't die prematurely, he'll definitely become an emperor in the future. Heh, that's hard to say. Let's see if Su Zhu can survive this. Don't forget, Xia Yin is still waiting for him in District 7. Lu Yun and the others were overjoyed to see Su Zimo receive such an opportunity. At the same time, however, they also felt a pang of regret. Who would have thought that the Vermilion Bird Heavenly Fire would have been released so early? If they could suppress it, Su Zimo would have had a better chance of survival when he faced Xia Yin. But now... The king of the rat world had an ugly look on his face as he looked at Lu Yun and the others from Sword World. This Su Zhu of yours is quite something. She didn't kill the evil demons in the fiend battlefield, but instead injured the true spirits of our worlds. That's right. The king of the insect world agreed. If it weren't for Su Zhu, our sacred spirits would have been enough to kill the plain-clothed swordsmen of the 10 great fiends. Fellow Taoists, please be careful with your words. What happened just now was obviously a sudden turn of events. Su Zhu didn't intentionally injure your sacred spirits. Su Zhu didn't know that he could comprehend the Vermilion Bird Heavenly Fire. How could he have controlled the situation amidst the chaos? The king of Wutong Realm also stepped forward. He stared coldly at the people of Sword World and said, "Forget about what happened just now. Why did Su Zhu meddle in other people's business and injure the Phoenix sons and Phoenix daughters of my realm?" Chapter 2860. In fact, more than 100 supreme true spirits were rare geniuses who had gathered the providence of a realm in each major realm. They were the number 1 true spirits of each major world. If these true spirits were thrown into the fiend battlefield, there was a high chance that a fight would break out even if there was no grudge between the two sides. The true spirits were all proud and arrogant. It was rare for them to see opponents of the same level, so they were naturally itching to fight. The situation in District 9 of the Fiend battlefield earlier was within the expectations of the kings. However, when the king of Wutong World saw Fengzi Phoenix Maiden defeated, he was still somewhat indignant and couldn't help but question. Before Lu Yun and the others could reply, the Qi Dragon King of the Dragon World spoke first. Su Zhu of the Sword World and Li are old friends. Naturally, she couldn't stand seeing your Wutong World bully her with numbers. What's the problem? On the other hand, your Wutong World's Fengzi Phoenix Maiden is so famous. What do you mean by telepathy and telepathy? Now, it seems like it's nothing much. The Dragon World and Wutong World, these two super major worlds, were originally peaceful. However, in the recent hundreds of thousands of years, there had been constant friction and conflicts. In fact, they were escalating and showing signs of going out of control. Even if there was no fiend battlefield, no one would be surprised if the kings of the two major worlds were at loggerheads and ridiculed each other. It wasn't just District 9 of the Fiend battlefield. In the other regions, there were also conflicts between the supreme true spirits and the 10 great villainous devils. However, both sides had their reservations and did not immediately take out their trump cards. After testing each other, they dispersed. Su Zimo endured the baptism of the Vermilion Bird Skyfire and recalled what had just happened. In fact, if it was just the Vermilion Bird Skyfire, it wouldn't be able to achieve the effect just now. It was only because his Vermilion Bird Skyfire had fused with the Tao fires of the Immortal, Buddhist, and Fiend sections. After this transformation, the Vermilion Bird Skyfire's power had increased exponentially and even reached the level of a supreme divine power. After fusing with the Tao fires of the Immortal, Buddhist, and Fiend sects, its power was even greater. Su Zimo did not fuse with his essence spirit fire. He had only released the Kacharati Tao fire just now. Due to the improvement of the Vermilion Bird Heavenly Fire, the power of the Kacharati Tao fire had also skyrocketed. The Pencharati Tao fire had also reached an unimaginable level. In Su Zimo's perception, if he forcefully released the Pentati Tao fire, the consumption of the power of essence spirit would be too terrifying. The gains would not make up for the losses. The Kacharati Tao fire was enough to resolve the crisis Luo Jun was facing. The truth was just as he had expected. The Kacharati Tao fire, infused with the Vermilion Bird Skyfire, exploded. The supreme true spirits of the insect realm, rat realm, and ant realm were instantly defeated. The army of hundreds of true spirits also fled in all directions. Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden were the first to bear the brunt of the attack, but in reality, their injuries were lighter than expected. Su Zimo managed to comprehend another supreme mystical ability after the two of them unleashed the Vermilion Bird Heavenly Flame together. The Kacharati Tao fire that he released just now was also an opportunity for Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden apart from the first wave of damage. Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden were born from flames. The two of them felt a sense of intimacy and familiarity with the Kacharati Tao fire that was infused with the Vermilion Bird Skyfire. The two of them stood up again and looked at Su Zimo with complicated gazes. This sword cultivator from the sword world had actually defeated them with the Tao technique and mystical ability that they were most proficient in. Furthermore, through the Vermilion Bird Skyfire that this sword cultivator had just released, the two of them had a new level of comprehension in the Tao of Fire. Therefore, the two of them did not have much enmity towards Su Zimo in the depths of their hearts. Upon realizing this, Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden exchanged glances and snorted coldly. They abandoned Su Zimo and sped in the direction of their clansmen. Su Zimo glanced at the plain-clothed swordsman, Luo Jun, and turned to leave without saying anything. Although what happened just now was more like an accident. However, Luo Jun knew that Su Zimo had done it on purpose. Luring two supreme true spirits here, borrowing their hands to move the stars and defeat the supreme true spirits of the insect, rat, and ant realms. Just how confident was this? How strong was his control to be able to do that? Luo Jun looked at Su Zimo's back view as the words echoed in his mind. "Livewell. Senior brother, are you all right?" A few sinful spirit sword cultivators came forward and asked. Luo Jun pondered for a moment and looked at the few people around him. He said in a deep voice, You guys hide for now. I have other matters to attend to, so there's no need to follow. But the others wanted to say something, but Luo Jun waved his hand and turned into a sword beam, vanishing from the spot. He wanted to stay far behind Su Zimo and see what this sword cultivator from the sword world wanted to do. If this sword cultivator encountered any danger, he might be able to help. On the other side, after Su Zimo lured Fengzi and the Phoenix Maiden away, as expected, the evil fiends and sinful spirits that were lurking in the surroundings launched an attack. They charged towards the remaining divine phoenixes and dragons. Among the evil fiends and sinful spirits, there were Rakshasas, Yakshas, and some were no different from humans. Thousands of them swarmed over in a dense crowd. Compared to the surrounding evil fiends and sinful spirits, there were less than 20 people from the Dragon World and Wutong World. The difference in numbers was great. However, there were supreme true spirits guarding this place after all. Although Long Li could not release supreme divine powers for the time being, the strength of a supreme true spirit was still present. With his incomparably strong physique and bloodline, he charged into the evil fiends and sinful spirits and started a massacre. The dragon's breath descended and froze everything within 10,000 kilometers. Lin Xuanzhen wielded his long sword and rampaged through the battlefield. His sword chi was like frost, and wherever it passed, people were thrown off their horses and blood splattered everywhere. Against the attack of the evil fiends and sinful spirits, the remaining dragons of Wutong World had no choice but to join forces temporarily. Under the lead of Lin Xuanzhen and Long Li, they defended against the attacks time and time again. A streak of fire streaked through the skies and descended, piercing into the crowd of evil fiends and sinful spirits, creating a huge pit and creating layers of flames. Countless evil fiends and sinful spirits were devoured instantly and turned into ashes without any corpses left. The flames were revealed. It was the Scarlet Phoenix Feather Spear. The sound of an even sharper weapon tearing through the air sounded. Huang Yujin tore through the air and tore the army of evil fiends and sinful spirits apart, leaving a clear scorch mark in the void that lingered for a long time. Fengzi and the Phoenix Maiden had arrived. Including Lin Xuanzhen and Long Li, although there were few people here, there were already 4 supreme true spirits overseeing the situation. The evil fiends and sinful spirits realized that the situation was not good and began to retreat without waiting for orders. This group of evil fiends and sinful spirits came quickly and retreated even faster. The Rakshasa race spread their wings and escaped into the sky. The Yaksha race either escaped into the void or hid deep underground to escape the battlefield. They also burrowed into the water and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, only corpses were left on the battlefield. Fengzi and the Phoenix Maiden glanced at Lin Xuanzhen and Long Li. They did not continue to attack and only left with their clansmen. Su Zimo followed behind. Chapter 2861. Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden seemed to have been injured. Although they were still able to unleash powerful combat strength, it seemed more like they were venting their anger. Su Zimo, who was floating over from afar, was wearing a green robe and looked calm. His breathing was steady, and he was obviously in a much better state than Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden. Brother Su Zhu won. Long Li clenched his fists in excitement. Feng Sun used his supreme ability, right? Lin Xuanzhen was a little worried. I just felt the sharpness of the immortal slaying sword. In her opinion, Su Zimo had released the immortal slaying sword in advance during the battle with Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden. His chances of winning against Xia Yin would be even lower. This was equivalent to using his greatest trump card first. He did use his supreme ability. Su Zimo nodded, then paused for a moment. However, I wasn't the one who released the immortal slaying sword. Lin Xuanzhen looked confused and asked subconsciously, other than Peak Master and me, who else? Before she could finish, a figure flashed across her mind. The plain-clothed swordsman, Luo Jun. But soon, Lin Xuanzhen thought about it and frowned. The immortal slaying sword is a supreme ability created by the immortal slaying emperor. How could he have comprehended it when he was imprisoned in the sinful land? There are many ways. Su Zimo said, with that person's talent, if he had seen the Tao of the immortal slaying sword and felt the sword intent of the immortal slaying sword, he would have a chance of comprehending it with his cultivation technique. If there really is a 9-stage heavenly tribulation, he would also have a chance of comprehending the immortal slaying sword. Back then, Yun Ting had comprehended the true essence of the immortal slaying sword with the help of the human slaying sword technique. Peak Master, could he have? There was a huge puzzle in Lin Sun's heart. Let's talk about this when we return to the sword world. Su Zimo shook his head slightly. They were in the evil demon battlefield. Who knew how many pairs of eyes were watching them? This was not a good matter to discuss. After everyone reorganized themselves, they set off together, rushing to the evil demon battlefield's 7th district. At the same time, no matter where they were in the evil demon battlefield, all the true spirit realm experts rushed towards the 7th district. In the various regions, although there were battles between true spirit realm experts, most of them were shallow and did not erupt into large-scale battles. This was also because they wanted to go to the 7th region to watch the battle. This strange phenomenon attracted the attention of many evil spirits. "What's going on?" asked a sinful spirit shrouded in darkness. He was dressed in a black robe, and his facial features could not be seen clearly. There were numerous similarly dressed sinful spirits gathered around him. They were like a myriad of stars surrounding the moon, and they crowded around him at the center. One of the 10 great demons, the Dark One, reporting to senior apprentice brother. A sinful spirit said, "I heard that the 2 supreme true spirits of the Heavenly Eye race and the Sword Realm are fighting in the 7th region." The supreme true spirit of the Heavenly Eye clan? The Dark One murmured, 8,000 years ago, Xiang Meng died. Was it Xia Yin who came? That's him. The sinful spirit said, the one fighting Xia Yin is the one who killed Xiang Meng 1,000 years ago. His name seems to be Su Zhu. Interesting. The Dark One murmured, it would be a pity to miss such a great battle. In the 1st district of the evil demon battlefield, a black-robed woman with a long sword on her back and a horsetail whisk in her hand listened to the news that her subordinates had gathered. She frowned and said, 2 supreme true spirits are fighting in the 7th region, and they caused such a huge commotion? I'll go take a look as well. The black-robed woman moved and left. This was one of the 10 great demons, and the beings of the 3,000 worlds called her the black-robed woman. A mountain in the 5th district suddenly exploded, and a tall and burly figure jumped out. He held a stone staff in his hand, and his eyes glowed red. It was a blood ape. Ripples suddenly appeared in the void of the 10th district. A yaksha revealed itself and grinned before disappearing into the void once more. The 10 great demons were basically scattered in the 10 districts. However, when they noticed the movements of the true spirits of the 3,000 worlds, the 10 great demons all headed toward the 7th district to investigate. The true spirits of the 3,000 worlds and the sinful spirits were like fire and water, and there wasn't much of a battle between them. Instead, they all headed toward the 7th district under the guidance of an invisible force. The 7th district of the evil demon battlefield immediately became the center of attention for a time. Xia Yin stood alone on a mountain peak that pierced through the clouds, looking down at the vast expanse. His black and white Taoist robe flapped in the wind. However, his heart didn't waver at all. The mountain peak below him was the highest peak in the 7th district of the Fiend battlefield. Ever since he descended on this mountain peak, there weren't any other living beings on it. He didn't know the name of this mountain peak. He didn't care either. He only knew that he wanted to stand on the highest peak and look down at all the other mountains. He wanted to kill that weak sword cultivator in front of everyone. At least in his eyes, that sword cultivator wasn't worth mentioning. If it weren't for the fact that the kings of his race kept asking him, he would have played a few more moves with that sword cultivator. He liked the feeling of being on top, controlling everything and toying with his opponent. Of course, it wasn't bad to stomp him to death cleanly. As he thought of this, the blood mark between his eyebrows opened slightly, revealing a terrifying aura. It was as if it came from the underworld, eerie and terrifying. What will his expression be like when he opens this heaven's eye? An image appeared in Xia Yin's mind. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. It was a faint, cold, and mocking smile. It was as if he could see the despair and fear of that sword cultivator before he died. He had seen this expression on too many people's faces. Xia Yin's eyes turned as he looked into the distance. Many people had already gathered around. At the foot of the mountain, in the air, in the grass, in the forest, there were true spirit experts from the 3,000 worlds, and there were even some supreme true spirits among them. There were also many sinful spirits hidden in the distance. Sigh. Xia Yin stretched out his finger and gently rubbed the bloody mark on his forehead. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint them. There won't be any great battle, and there won't be any earth-shattering absolute. It'll be over in just one round. Xia Yin thought so. There were more and more living beings in the 7th district of the Fiend battlefield. The true spirit experts of the 3,000 worlds occupied most of the area around the mountain. Only the western side was left for the sinful spirits. Before the battle between Xia Yin and Su Zimo began, both parties maintained a certain distance and were able to coexist peacefully. The true spirits of the Stone World, Wutong World, Kun World, Peng World, Light World, Barbarian World, Blood World, and other super worlds had all arrived. The Flower World, Giant World, Poison World, Star World, Mystic World, Lifeless World, Tomb World, all the high-level worlds had also arrived. The Gold World, Wood World, Wind World, Rain World, Thunder World, Lightning World, Sky Scorpion World, Jade Toad World, Rhinoceros World, most of the mid-level worlds had also arrived. There were also many low-level worlds. Although there were no supreme true spirits present, there were still many true spirit experts who came to watch the battle. Xia Yin stood at the peak of the mountain with his hands behind his back, looking down at the world. Everyone inside and outside the Fiend battlefield was watching. The wind howled and sand filled the air. Heaven and earth was filled with killing intent. At this moment, an azure figure appeared on the horizon. Chapter 2862. Wow! Yaksha ghostly spirit, one of the 10 great fiends, exclaimed exaggeratedly, I thought he was some powerful character. So he's just a Kongming human? It said that he once killed Xiang Meng of the Heavenly Eye clan with his sword alone, the Dark One said coldly. Tisk. Yaksha ghostly spirit curled his lips disapprovingly. Not far away, Luo Jun suddenly said, This person is from the Sword Realm. He's indeed very strong. Can he block the Eye of Reincarnation? A man with stars in his eyes asked in return. Luo Jun pursed his lips and did not say anything. If it was a chaotic battle, he might have helped Su Zimo. But now, the two were fighting on the mountain peak in front of everyone. Even he could not interfere. At this moment, the 10 great evil demons were all gathered. Regarding this battle, the evil demons and sinful spirits were only there to watch the show and did not support any side. It would be best for them if both sides were to suffer heavy losses. The black-clothed woman suddenly said, This mountain is called Mount Mang. It means death. This battle will be a life and death battle. Moreover, Mang and blind have the same pronunciation. It's not good for Xia Yin. Ha! Yaksha ghostly spirit laughed and said mockingly, Who are you trying to fool? Are all the Taoist techniques passed down in your lineage just these mystifying tricks? The black-clothed woman did not refute. She only glanced coldly at Yaksha ghostly spirit and said, I see a needle in your glabella. I'm afraid there's a calamity. Yaksha ghostly spirit sneered and did not take it seriously. On the other side, Su Zhu is here. Xuewen clapped his hands and laughed when he saw the green figure not far away. Then, he looked at Muyin in the direction of the flower realm and said loudly, Beauty, is the bet still valid? Muyin did not say a word. In fact, she was not confident either. There was no suspense about the outcome of this battle. After all, Xia Yin's aura was too strong. He was sitting on the mountain peak in his black and white Taoist robe. Even the weather in the sky was in 2 different states. On one side there were dark clouds. On the other side, the sky was clear. The entire sky was like the black and white Taoist robe he wore, and like his eyes, yin and yang were separated by a clear distinction. Without using any Taoist techniques, he was able to change the atmosphere and trigger the momentum of heaven and earth just by standing there. That was how terrifying Xia Yin was. Even if Mu Lian believed that Su Zimo could last 10 moves, she was still hesitant at this moment. Stone World. The bald man, Sherpa, twisted his neck and stared at Lin Xuanjun behind Su Zimo. His eyes revealed a strong desire to fight as he said, "The moment Su Zhu dies will be the moment she dies." In the crowd, a woman dressed as a Taoist nun with a square chessboard on her back looked at the black-haired, green-robed man in surprise. He didn't die? The peak master of the 9th sword peak, Su Zhu, was him? Su Zimo? Yunju? The woman pondered for a moment, then suddenly lowered her head and smiled. No matter what, it was a joyous thing to see that he was still alive. Chess deity Junyu. The divine son of Ming Hui's expression changed as he noticed the woman. In the vast crowd, there was only one woman dressed in such a strange way. The divine son of Ming Hui had originally planned to use the chess deity Junyu to get rid of Su Zhu from the sword world. Now, it seemed that there was no need for that. Su Zhu couldn't survive Xia Yin. Su Zimo asked Lin Xuanjun, Long Li, and the others to stay at the foot of the mountain. After giving them some instructions, he climbed up the mountain alone. Xia Yin stood on the mountain peak and looked down at Su Zimo, who had risen into the sky. The smile on his face became more and more obvious. Finally, Su Zimo stepped onto the mountain peak and stood opposite Xia Yin. The battle was about to start. The moment Su Zimo stepped onto the mountain peak, the hearts of the people from the sword world in the Sky Tribute Square instantly rose to their throats. They were extremely nervous. The Cold Eye Monarch had said that Xia Yin would release the Eye of Reincarnation the moment the two sides started fighting. He wouldn't give Su Zimo any chance. The outcome of the battle was no longer the key. The exposure of the creation Qinglian seemed inevitable. What Lu Yun and the others were most worried about was whether the 12th grade creation Qinglian could break free from the 6 paths of reincarnation and find a chance to escape. On the mountain peak, the two of them stood face to face. Xia Yin wore a smile and looked relaxed as he looked at Su Zimo with interest. This sword cultivator really dared to come. Moreover, he could stand in front of him and still be so calm. "I admire you." Xia Yin smiled gently and said, "It's a pity that you're going to die." "Of course, it's a worthy death to die in my hands in front of the world. Moreover, your death will make the other realms and living beings of other races understand something very, very important. Don't offend the Celestial Eye clan. Got it?" Xia Yin's final sentence was not directed at Su Zimo. Instead, it was directed at the endless living beings of the 10,000 races around them. Xia Yin looked down on all living beings, his aura reaching its peak. Su Zimo still stood quietly across from him. He tilted his head slightly and looked at Xia Yin as if he was looking at an idiot. The next moment, Xia Yin turned around and the bloody scar between his brows suddenly opened. The earth quaked and the mountains shook. The wind and clouds changed color. As the scar opened, the dark clouds in the sky dissipated. The clear blue sky on the other side also vanished. In its place was a bottomless abyss, dark and cold. The sky darkened. The Eye of Reincarnation had opened. Images of the 6 paths of reincarnation appeared in the celestial eye. Behind the 6 paths of reincarnation, an eerie chill exuded. Ghostly wails and howls came from within. Xia Yin's figure seemed to have disappeared. In front of Su Zimo, only the Eye of Reincarnation was left. At this moment, the 5 elements were reversed, yin and yang were in chaos. Heaven and earth were reversed, stars fell and rivers flowed in reverse. Everything around the Eye of Reincarnation was being pulled in by it, forcibly pulled in. Mount Mang was collapsing. Countless gravel floated up and entered the Eye of Reincarnation. Heaven and earth essence chi, divine weapons, bloodlines, essence spirits, rays of light and all mystic arts could not escape. They were forcefully pulled into the cycle of reincarnation. The surrounding void was collapsing rapidly. Even time was messed up. Even the space-time shackles couldn't withstand the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation. All of the living beings standing in the distance looked at the eye of reincarnation. They felt as if they had seen the past, but also as if they had arrived in the future. The bloodlines in everyone's bodies were stirring and were about to burst out of their bodies. Even though they were so far away, their blood and chi could not withstand it. One could imagine how much impact Su Zimo would have to endure when facing the eye of reincarnation. The perfected spirits of the 3,000 worlds were horrified. Even the many supreme true spirits present were greatly shocked, and their faces were filled with astonishment. The 10 fiends were even more frightened and their scalps tingled. No one expected Xia Yin to not give Su Zimo any chance. He did not even test him and opened the eye of reincarnation. It was over. That was the eye of reincarnation. Who could resist such a mystic art? Chapter 2863. Sky Tribute Square. Everyone from the Sword World looked at the scene on the mountain peak with solemn expressions. The Flower World's Orchid Immortal King frowned slightly. The Hornless Dragon King shook his head and sighed. The Eye of Reincarnation was successfully activated. There was no suspense in this battle. The kings of the other realms were all shocked. Although they had cultivated to the Grotto Heaven realm, this was the first time most of them had seen the power of the Eye of Reincarnation. Unlike the people from the Sword World, the people from the Sky Eye clan cheered. The Cold Eye Monarch couldn't help but laugh proudly. What Xia Yin had just said was exactly what he wanted to hear. That's right, this battle was to make an example out of Su Zimo. He wanted to establish his dominance. Suddenly, through the giant screen on Sky Tribute Square, one could see that there was a slight change in the battlefield on Mount Mang. Su Zimo, who was facing the Eye of Reincarnation, wasn't swallowed immediately. He didn't seem to have given up. He was still struggling and resisting. Behind that seemingly thin and weak body, 8 jade-white elephant tusks slowly grew out. They were sparkling and emitted a powerful and mysterious aura. Su Zimo's power was rapidly increasing. Divine elephant tusks. The celestial phenomenon monarch suddenly frowned and exclaimed softly. This was the celestial phenomenon race's innate ability. There were 4 levels. Growing 8 divine elephant tusks was the peak of the 4th level. It could reach the level of a supreme innate ability. However, how did this human from the Sword World learn this innate divine ability? Oh! The Cold Eye Monarch raised his eyebrows slightly and deliberately said loudly, "The Sword World's 9th Sword Peak Lord is so powerful. Using a supreme innate ability, his battle power has increased by several times. Could it be that our Xia Yin is in danger?" The other Sky Eye race monarch understood and cooperated with him. Then, the two of them looked at each other and laughed. A monarch from the celestial phenomenon race shook his head and said, "Even 4 divine elephant tusks can't stop the Eye of Reincarnation. Su Zhu is just resisting." No one knew the innate ability of the divine elephant tusks better than the celestial phenomenon race. No one doubted the words of the celestial phenomenon race monarch. The fiend battlefield, Mount Mang. Looking at Su Zimo, who was releasing the power of 8 fangs, Xia Yin could not help but laugh. "Do you still want to resist?" Xia Yin's voice slowly rang out. "Everything about you is nothing in the face of the 6 paths of reincarnation. You are nothing but a dream. You cannot even withstand a single blow. You will all be sent into reincarnation." Su Zimo took a deep breath as he felt the power of his body, bloodline, and primordial spirit skyrocketing. He activated his primordial spirit and began to form hand seals. The power of reincarnation derived from imitating the aura and images of the 6 paths of reincarnation with the power of the heavenly eye is worthy of being called the 6 paths of reincarnation? Su Zimo looked at the Eye of Reincarnation opposite him with a mocking expression. Xia Yin coldly snorted and said, "It's enough to kill you." Ha! At the peak of Mount Mang, Su Zimo faced the sky and laughed. The hand seals in his hand had already been completed. He pointed at the Eye of Reincarnation opposite him and shouted, "Let me show you what the 6 paths of reincarnation is." As soon as he said that, a huge vortex abyss appeared on Su Zimo's fingertip and spread out continuously. The vortex was divided into 6 regions. and each region was covered with strange runes that emitted a boundless power. The world was spinning and time was in chaos. Xia Yin's eye of reincarnation paled in comparison to this huge vortex abyss. The difference was like heaven and earth. Xia Yin could not resist the attraction of the 6 paths of reincarnation and was forced to reveal himself. His face was filled with shock, confusion, disbelief, panic, fear, and indescribable emotions. What was this? In a daze, Xia Yin seemed to recall the scene of the 6 paths of reincarnation when he opened his yin-yang eye. Even back then, it was only a glimpse. He had only seen the tip of the iceberg of the 6 paths of reincarnation and had not seen the full 6 paths of reincarnation. It was only now that he truly saw what the 6 paths of reincarnation was. Pissed. The surrounding true spirit experts watching the battle could not help but gasp when they saw this change. If Xia Yin's eye of reincarnation had shocked everyone, then Xia Yin's eye of reincarnation had shocked everyone. But now, the 6 paths of reincarnation released by Su Zimo made them feel fear and uneasiness that seeped into their souls. It was unstoppable. Under this vortex abyss, no power could resist it. The more than 100 supreme true spirits present, including the 10 great fiends, subconsciously switched places with Xia Yin. There was only one outcome. Impossible. This is impossible. After Xia Yin revealed himself, the phantom formed by his eye of reincarnation could not withstand the suppression of the 6 paths of reincarnation and collapsed rapidly. Streaks of blood appeared on the eye of reincarnation and even seeped out. How was this possible? Xia Yin could not believe what he was seeing. This must be your illusion. Xia Yin roared. This is a supreme divine ability of illusions, myriad manifestations of the universe. Don't try to lie to me. Among the 10 great fiends, there was indeed an evil fiend who cultivated myriad manifestations of the universe. At that moment, when he heard Xia Yin's hysterical roar, he could not help but shake his head. Myriad manifestations of the universe can't even stop your eye of reincarnation, let alone the 6 paths of reincarnation. I once caught a glimpse of the 6 paths of reincarnation before I comprehended the current eye of reincarnation. What right do you have? Xia Yin was still roaring at Su Zimo. Cracks began to appear on his body and he was on the verge of collapse. Countless blood qi formed thin threads in midair and escaped into the 6 paths of reincarnation. That's because I've been to the netherworld before. Su Zimo said indifferently, do you want to go? I'll send you on your way now. Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit once more and released the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation to the maximum. The runes on the 6 paths shone with a resplendent light as though they could devour everything. All living beings in the world and all living things could not escape the cycle of reincarnation. Xia Yin roared and a beam of blood light burst forth from his eye of reincarnation, charging towards Su Zimo. That was the essence spirit secret skill of the heavenly eye race. It was also an essence spirit secret skill unique to the eye of reincarnation, light of reincarnation. Xia Yin released his essence spirit secret skill, wanting to interrupt Su Zimo's channeling. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged and he did not even use his essence spirit secret skill to defend against it. In the face of the 6 paths of reincarnation, essence spirit secret skills could not escape. Before the beam of blood light could land on Su Zimo, its trajectory was changed by the 6 paths of reincarnation and it turned into an arc that disappeared into the vortex abyss. The gigantic vortex seemed like it wanted to devour everything. In fact, everyone began to hallucinate. If the vortex abyss was allowed to continue growing, this entire world and the entire fiend battlefield might be engulfed by the 6 paths of reincarnation. Chapter 2864. Sky Tribute Square. All of a sudden, the hubbub in the air disappeared. The square became so silent that one could hear a pin drop. It was as if something invisible was suppressing it. The kings from the 3,000 realms were all dumbfounded when they saw this scene on the peak of Mount Mang. Su Zimo stood in the air, his black hair dancing in the wind. His gaze was deep and his aura was overwhelming. He pointed at Xia Yin and with a single finger, he summoned the 6 paths of reincarnation that was even more terrifying than the Eye of Reincarnation. Xia Yin couldn't block it at all. Even through the giant screen, the kings could feel Xia Yin's insignificance, despair, unwillingness, and helplessness in front of that enormous whirlpool. What is this? A king from the Sky Eye race stuttered. He was dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. How can this be? The Cold Eye monarch clenched his fists and stared at the screen. His voice was squeezed out from between his teeth. 6 paths of reincarnation? How can he comprehend the 6 paths of reincarnation? For some reason, the Cold Eye monarch's body was trembling. This is the real 6 paths of reincarnation. On the square, some king suddenly let out a deep sigh, filled with endless emotions. This sigh finally broke the oppressive atmosphere in the surroundings, causing a huge wave of sound to erupt. Oh my God! Sword World Su Zhu actually comprehended the 6 paths of reincarnation. He hit it too well. The most terrifying thing is that he's only at the Kongming stage. I can't believe it. If he reaches the Dongshu stage, who in the 3,000 worlds will be able to fight him? Including the immortal slaying sword, the vermilion bird heavenly fire, and the 6 paths of reincarnation, this means Su Zhu has comprehended 3 supreme skills. That's 4. Another person said. Don't forget, there's also the elephant race's divine elephant tooth. Comprehending 4 supreme skills at the true self stage. That's shocking. No wonder he's so confident and dares to meet Xia Yin. With such a person, Sword World will prosper. It was as if a stone had stirred up 1,000 ripples. Clamor, clamor, and clamor intertwined together, creating waves of sound. Immortal Emperor Yulan suddenly let out a smile. Her nervous mind also relaxed. The Hornless Dragon King shook his head slightly. His originally cold face actually revealed a trace of emotion as he muttered to himself, "The younger generation will surpass us in time, the younger generation will surpass us in time." Everyone in the Sword World was still trying their best to digest this matter. Although Lu Yun and the others knew about Su Zimo's secret as Qinglian's true body, they'd never imagined that they'd be able to witness it with their own eyes. This was the 6 paths of reincarnation. Although Yun Ting was also very happy, he still had mixed feelings. Originally, he had regarded Su Zimo as his greatest opponent on his path of cultivation, as well as one of the driving forces that spurred him on. Because there was Su Zimo in front of him, he never dared to relax. He had to work hard to catch up with Su Zimo. But now, he suddenly realized that the gap between the two of them was growing larger and larger, and a feeling of powerlessness even arose in his heart. How were they going to catch up? However, after 1,000 or 2,000 years, the other had already disappeared without a trace. Among those in the Sword World, only Kitsune remained calm. She wasn't surprised by this scene at all. In the Sword World, Kitsune was the only one who understood Su Zimo's combat strength the best. For 1,000 years, Su Zimo had been cultivating in seclusion at Burial Sword Peak. He'd used a secret method to leave many mysterious runes in the Great Formation, shielding it from the heavens and preventing detection. Only Kitsune had stood guard by Su Zimo's side, personally witnessing him comprehend one supreme combat art after another. Kitsune had personally witnessed her master's 12th rank fortune realm Qinglian collapse a total of 6 times when he comprehended the 6 paths of reincarnation. She was most aware of the power and terror of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Thinking back on this matter, a trace of warmth rose in Kitsune's heart. She knew that her master didn't really want her to stand guard by his side because there was any real danger. Her master only wanted her to watch from the side when he comprehended the supreme combat arts, to experience the entire process and comprehend the Tao within. This experience was too rare and too precious for her. Her master had really put in a lot of effort and taught her without any reservations. Kitsune clenched her fists slightly, her gaze firm. She believed that she wouldn't let down her master's legacy, wouldn't let down Wu Dao, and wouldn't let down the supreme reputation that her master had built for her. Seems like the Heavenly Eye race was right. This battle really ended in 1 round. But they guessed wrong. The surrounding crowd was still discussing. The Cold-Eye Monarch's voice suddenly rang out. He was practically gnashing his teeth. Everyone turned to look at him. Someone comforted him. "Brother Cold-Eye, forget it. Xia-Yin can only blame his bad luck for meeting such an opponent even if he dies." I said, "Xia-Yin can't die." The Cold-Eye Monarch roared again, his face flushed red. "Don't provoke him. Look at him, he's probably lost his mind." Someone said softly, "Ha." The Cold-Eye Monarch's expression was a little ferocious as he revealed a smile that was uglier than crying. He stared at the people from the Sword World and said slowly, "You all think Su Zhu will win for sure? Let me tell you, no matter how strong the 6 paths of reincarnation is, there's still a limit." Lu Yun and the others were silent. This was indeed true. No matter how strong the 6 paths of reincarnation was, it was still within the realm of combat arts. There was still a limit to its power. The Cold-Eye Monarch continued, "Xia-Yin is the #1 genius in 1,000,000 years. The Eye of Reincarnation is only the first supreme combat art he comprehended. He still has a second supreme combat art. With 2 supreme combat arts unleashed at the same time, he will definitely find a chance to escape from the 6 paths of reincarnation and escape." Lu Yun and the others still didn't argue with him. This was because they could roughly guess that if Xia-Yin unleashed 2 supreme combat arts, he would definitely be able to escape from the 6 paths of reincarnation. However, although the Cold-Eye Monarch's words were powerful, they didn't have much momentum. Lu Yun only looked at the Cold-Eye Monarch quietly and asked, "You've said so much and shouted so loudly and aggressively. So, you just want to prove that Xia-Yin can escape? Too petty." The Cold-Eye Monarch trembled as if he was struck by lightning. He clutched his chest and felt a sharp pain in his heart. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood. The Stone Cave Monarch couldn't stand it anymore and wanted to help the Cold-Eye Monarch. He said loudly, "As long as he can escape, it's not a failure. There's still a long way to go. With Xia-Yin's talent, they will fight again in the Grotto Heaven realm. At that time, it's hard to say who will win." At this moment, the battlefield at the peak of Mount Mang did indeed change. Just as the Cold-Eye Monarch had said, in this moment of life and death, Xia-Yin angrily opened his eyes. Without holding back, he activated his blood chi and released his bloodline phenomenon. At the same time, Xia-Yin unleashed his second supreme combat art, Infinite Yin-Yang. Chapter 2865. Just like what the Cold-Eye King had predicted, Xia-Yin, who was in the middle of the battlefield, knew his situation better than anyone else. He no longer thought about how to defeat Su Zimo. This was already impossible and impractical. Even though he would lose face and the Heavenly Eye race would lose face and be ridiculed by countless people, as long as he was alive, he would have a chance to make a comeback. At this moment, Xia-Yin calmed down. He only had one thought in his mind, and that was to escape. He was, after all, the first person on the War Merit Jade Tablet, the first monster of the Heavenly Eye race in 1,000,000 years. He had been through countless life and death situations since he started cultivating. He broke free from the shock and fear brought by the 6 paths of reincarnation. He kept his Tao heart stable and his psyche calm as he made a precise decision. Although the 6 paths of reincarnation was strong and unparalleled, it was still a skill and there was a limit to its power. As long as he could break through this limit, he would have a chance of survival. He didn't even need to completely break free from the 6 paths of reincarnation. He only needed a small gap to take out the token of heaven and escape. This was his only chance. Yin, Yang, limitless. After Xia-Yin released his bloodline vision, he opened his eyes wide and used his eye technique. He had the Yin-Yang eye, so it was naturally easier for him to comprehend the limitless Yin-Yang. To him, the limitless Yin-Yang was both a supreme skill and an eye technique. A black ray shot out from his left eye while a white ray shot out from his right eye. They landed in midair and formed 2 lifelike Yin-Yang fishes. Normally, these 2 fishes would bite each other in midair and quickly form a huge Yin-Yang millstone that could suppress the 5 elements, overturn the universe, and crush everything in the world. Xia-Yin believed that the combination of the limitless Yin-Yang and the Eye of Reincarnation would give him a chance to catch his breath, even if it couldn't fight against the 6 paths of reincarnation. Su Zimo seemed to have seen through Xia Yin's intention. He sneered and controlled the 6 paths of reincarnation with one hand and closed his fingers with the other. He was ready to use another supreme skill, the Celestial Slaying Sword. The Celestial Slaying Sword was fighting against the limitless yin-yang. This supreme skill couldn't affect the 6 paths of reincarnation. The Eye of Reincarnation and Xia Yin's bloodline phenomenon were far from enough to shake the 6 paths of reincarnation. At this point in the battle, he would not give Xia Yin any chance. However, just as he was about to release his sword finger, he suddenly paused and frowned. Su Zimo suddenly felt a strange sensation in his eyes. His left eye was cold and his right eye was burning hot. Before he could react, Xia Yin's yin-yang twin fish rushed towards his eyes. All right. On the Sky Tribute Square, the Cold Eye Monarch was overjoyed when he saw this. To his surprise, Xia Yin didn't use the yin-yang limitless extremity to resist the 6 paths reincarnation. Instead, he controlled the yin-yang twin fish to attack Su Zimo directly. There was finally a turn for the better. A glimmer of hope rose in the heart of the Cold Eye Monarch. Could it be that Xia Yin wanted to turn the tables? Many people present were stunned by this change in technique. But very quickly, everyone gradually realized that the situation on the battlefield seemed to be very different from what they had just now. Xia Yin's expression was filled with fear and panic. He didn't look like he was planning a counterattack at all. On the battlefield, Xia Yin noticed this change and couldn't help but be shocked. His expression changed. He released his essence spirit in a frenzy, wanting to control the yin-yang twin fish to merge together and form the yin-yang millstone. But he was horrified to discover that these 2 yin-yang twin fish were completely out of his control. Under countless gazes, the 2 yin-yang twin fish turned into 2 beams of light, one black and one white, and entered Su Zimo's eyes. The yin-yang twin fish didn't hurt Su Zimo at all. Instead, it seemed to have stimulated something terrifying in his eyes. In the next moment, Su Zimo's left eye became as black as ink, cold and sinister. His right eye was as white as jade, dazzling and dazzling. The dark power emitted from Su Zimo's left eye was purer and more terrifying than Xia Yin's. The light emitted from his right eye was even more dazzling. Their eyes met. Through the yin-yang twin fish, their eyes seemed to have built a bridge. Black and white, yin and yang, the 2 types of power flowed out of Xia Yin's eyes continuously, condensing into thin threads in midair and surging into Su Zimo's eyes. The light in Xia Yin's eyes dimmed rapidly and the power of yin and yang was also weakening rapidly. The 2 god stones in Su Zimo's eyes, candlelight and nether glow, suddenly unleashed their might and devoured the power of yin and yang in midair. They even tried to absorb all the power of yin and yang in Xia Yin's eyes through the yin-yang twin fish. Xia Yin's body floated in midair, raising his head and letting out a tragic cry. His eyes were rapidly sinking in at a speed visible to the naked eye, forming 2 shockingly large holes. Inside and outside the fiend battlefield, everyone and all living beings watched this scene with their mouths agape. Xia Yin's ocular technique, the supreme mystique yin-yang limitless, was neutralized by Su Zimo's eyes. He didn't even use any mystique or technique. Not only that, even Xia Yin's eyes couldn't be saved. What kind of technique was this? The Kuan realm's Bei Mingyuan and the Peng realm's 9th prince were each other's enemies. But when they saw this scene, they subconsciously looked at each other and felt a chill run down their spines. They looked at the black-haired, green-robed figure with fear in their eyes. These 2 supreme true spirits were the top true spirits of the Kuan and Peng realms. But at this moment, they both felt fear in their hearts. This was because the supreme mystique they had comprehended was the limitless yin-yang limitless. Now that they saw Xia Yin's fate, they couldn't help but think of the consequences they would face if they became enemies with Su Zhu. Speaking of which, this scene was a bit of a coincidence. Xia Yin's counterattack was correct. However, the limitless yin-yang divine power that he comprehended with his yin-yang eyes was countered by Su Zimo's illumination and nether glow. If Xia Yin had comprehended other supreme mystic powers, even if it was merely the space-time shackle, Su Zimo would have to summon another supreme mystic power to defend against it and dispel it if he wanted to kill the latter completely. But now, under the influence of the candlelight and serene glow, the limitless yin-yang limitless couldn't be formed at all. The two fishes looked as if they had found their mother and looked into Su Zimo's eyes without hesitation. Not only that, the two fishes wanted to draw the power of yin and yang from Xia Yin's eyes and send it all into the candlelight and serene glow. Thus, the shocking scene before them was formed. At this moment, everyone realized one thing. Xia Yin had lost. It was just one round. From beginning to end, Su Zimo had only released the power of the 8 fangs and the 6 paths of reincarnation. This battle was over. Chapter 2866. Peak of Mount Mang. When the illumination and nether glow divine stones in Su Zimo's eyes absorbed Xia Yin's yin-yang twin fish, they also absorbed everything related to visual techniques and the Tao of that supreme mystic power from the latter's eyes. All these years, Su Zimo did not have the intention to cultivate the yin-yang Tao. However, in reality, he was already able to release the yin-yang twin fish diagram back in Tianhuang mainland to fight against supreme divine powers and had long comprehended the yin-yang Tao. When he ascended, the essence spirits of Qinglian and Dragon Phoenix were able to fuse with the help of illumination and nether glow. Eventually, they stabilized completely with the help of the perfection of Wisdom Nirvana Sutra. In reality, Su Zimo's essence spirit contained the purest power of extreme yin and extreme yang to begin with. Now that he had absorbed Xia Yin's yin-yang eyes, the Tao technique of limitless yin-yang entered his mind as well. Under normal circumstances, one would require a long period of accumulation and fortuitous coincidences to comprehend a supreme divine power. However, Su Zimo had already begun comprehending the yin-yang Tao back in the lower realm. Right now, he was able to comprehend limitless yin-yang with great accumulation, and success was inevitable. Of course, the most important reason was the illumination and nether glow divine stones in his eyes. The 2 divine stones were like the root of wisdom for Buddhism and could allow Su Zimo to comprehend the yin-yang Tao with greater ease. Sky Tribute Square. Many members of the Heavenly Eye race had terrible expressions as though they had lost their parents. The Cold Eye Monarch knew that Xia Yin was finished. Even after releasing 2 supreme divine powers, he could not break free from the 6 paths of reincarnation. What was even stranger was that not only did limitless yin-yang not injure Su Zimo, Xia Yin's yin-yang eyes were even being devoured by Su Zimo. What is he doing? Right then, someone seemed to have noticed something amiss and asked softly. He's absorbing Xia Yin's yin-yang eyes, Before the other person could finish, his expression changed and he exclaimed softly, "A supreme divine power to cleanse himself?" Sword World Su Zhu is comprehending the supreme divine ability, limitless yin-yang. In the beginning, only a few people noticed this scene, but in the blink of an eye, it caused a huge commotion in Sky Tribute Square. How many supreme divine abilities has he comprehended? The divine elephant's tusk, the 6 paths of reincarnation, the vermilion bird's heavenly fire, plus the immortal slaying sword that he has yet to unleash, and the limitless yin-yang that he is currently comprehending, a total of 5. On the square, the kings of the various realms were still able to calm down. The expressions of many true spirits changed drastically as they sucked in a breath of cold air. 5 supreme divine abilities, what kind of concept was that? It was unimaginable. Let alone the true spirits present, this matter had already exceeded the knowledge of all the monarchs present. 5 supreme divine abilities. I'm afraid this can be considered unprecedented. Among the 5 supreme techniques, there's still the terrifying 6 paths of reincarnation. Xia Yin didn't lose unjustly. Even the immortal kings present here felt unparalleled shock when they saw this scene. Until now, the immortal kings on Sky Tribute Square still hadn't realized what was going to happen next. Seeing the next scene, they would soon forget the shock they had felt. Even many years later, when some immortal kings recalled this matter, they would feel their scalps go numb and their hearts tremble. At the peak of Mount Mang, comprehending the limitless yin-yang was a natural process, and he almost didn't encounter any obstacles. Soon, the power of the supreme divine ability descended, tempering his body, cleansing his bloodline, and strengthening his primordial spirit. Su Zimo's cultivation realm was also rapidly increasing. Originally, he had just stepped into the Kongming stage, and it would take a long time for him to reach the Dongshu stage. However, in the evil demon battlefield, he had comprehended the vermilion bird heavenly fire and the limitless yin-yang divine ability, causing his cultivation realm to rise by a large margin. Of course, the most important thing was that he had comprehended another technique. This meant that his battling prowess had risen to a whole new level. Moreover, after this battle, he had just released the power of the 8 fangs, and the primordial spirit that the 6 paths of reincarnation had consumed. After this battle, not only did he not consume any energy, but his condition was even better than before, and his combat strength was even more terrifying. Su Zimo stood in the air, controlling the 6 paths of reincarnation with one hand. Feeling the boundless power in his body that had nowhere to vent, he couldn't help but roar into the sky. Amidst this roar, Xia Yin was also on the verge of collapse. He had lost his yin-yang eyes, but he still hadn't given up. After all, he was the #1 immortal spirit of the Heavenly Eye clan and the first person on the Battle Merit Jade Tablet. Even at this juncture, he would not give up. Xia Yin frantically activated his bloodline and released his bloodline vision. His bloodline vision was a blood-red eye. The power of this blood-red eye resonated with the eye of reincarnation at his glabella, erupting with an even more powerful counterattack. This was also one of his killing moves. However, this power couldn't resist the 6 paths of reincarnation at all. Xia Yin's bloodline vision had just been formed, and under the guidance of the 6 paths of reincarnation, it showed signs of collapsing. How can this be? My bloodline. Xia Yin's voice became intermittent, filled with unwillingness. It had to be said that Xia Yin was indeed a rare monster incarnate of the Heavenly Eye clan. The Heavenly Eye clan's physique and bloodline were only ranked in the middle of the 10,000 races and could not compare to powerful races such as the Protoss and Dragons. However, the fact that Xia Yin could cultivate the Heavenly Eye clan's bloodline to such an extent and even conjure a bloodline vision was proof of his talent. Unfortunately, the difference was too great. Su Zimo looked at Xia Yin, who was still resisting in the corner, and sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness, saying indifferently, "Back when I comprehended the 6 paths of reincarnation, my grade 12 creation Qinglian body collapsed 6 times. How can your bloodline compare to mine?" Grade 12 creation Qinglian. Under such circumstances, those few words were the final straw that crushed Xia Yin's Tao heart. The 6 paths of reincarnation surged and engulfed Xia Yin's body. However, right as Xia Yin's body was submerged into the 6 paths of reincarnation, the eye of reincarnation at his glabella fell off and exploded. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze slightly. In reality, the Heavenly Eye of the Heavenly Eye clan was their Tao fruit as well. The Eye of Reincarnation was known as one of the 3 heavenly eyes and contained the essence of Xia Yin's Tao techniques. Now that it exploded, the power it released was terrifying. Boom! A deafening explosion sounded from within the 6 paths of reincarnation. This was equivalent to an intense explosion within the 6 paths of reincarnation. Right in front of countless gazes, the vortex abyss that was spinning continuously in midair could not withstand the impact and collapsed instantly. Su Zimo was right in front of the 6 paths of reincarnation and bore the brunt of the impact. He could not dodge at all, and countless shockwaves surged towards him. However, a power of that level could not hurt his body and bloodline at all. However, against the impact of the explosion and the shockwaves, Su Zimo felt as though something was missing from his waist. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2867. This battle could be said to have attracted the attention of the world. Under the gaze of countless living beings in the 3,000 worlds, the first person on the Battle Merit Jade Tablet, Xia Yin, had died. The Eye of Reincarnation exploded, and even the 6 paths of reincarnation were on the verge of collapse. Naturally, Xia Yin had been blown to smithereens. Between heaven and earth, there was silence. Only the rustling of the wind could be heard faintly. All the supreme true spirits present had initially only had the mentality of watching this battle for fun. Who would have thought that they would witness such a shocking scene with their own eyes? Xuewen of the Blood World had once made a bet with Mu Lian that Su Zimo would not be able to last more than 10 moves. But now, in just one round, Xia Yin had died. Divine Sun Ming Hui's expression was ugly, and there was a lingering fear in his heart. Fortunately, I did not attack him at the Protoss's residence. Otherwise, if he had chosen to attack Su Zimo that day, he would probably be a corpse now. Shi Per of the Stone World grinned slightly as he looked at the figure in midair. Although there was still a trace of arrogance in his expression, the depths of his eyes were filled with fear. Even his arm, which was holding the stone axe, was trembling slightly. This person is undefeatable. This was the only thought left in the minds of the 10 great demons. The plain-clothed swordsman Luo Jun had long seen that Su Zimo was extraordinary, but he had never imagined that this seemingly weak scholar would be so tyrannical. If one wanted to distinguish the supreme true spirits present based on their combat strength, they would probably have to go through countless battles. But everyone knew that no matter how many levels the supreme true spirit's combat strength was divided into, the one at the peak of Mount Mang was definitely a unique existence. No one could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Lin Xuanzhen saw this scene and finally heaved a sigh of relief. However, her heart was filled with more emotion and shock, and she could not digest it for a while. I haven't seen him for a few years, and he has already cultivated to this level. In the crowd, chess deity Jun Yu frowned slightly and murmured softly, looking somewhat distressed. She was naturally warlike. Even if the opponent's combat strength was stronger, she was fearless and would always find an opportunity to spar with him. But now, that person had grown to the point where she had to give up on this idea? On Sky Tribute Square. In fact, when Su Zimo released the 6 paths of reincarnation to counterattack, everyone had already expected this outcome. Although there were some twists and turns in the process. Even though Xia Yin had tried to break free and retaliate, he was still unable to do anything before absolute strength. Everyone from the Sky Eye tribe had quietened down. Their previous arrogance and complacency had long disappeared. Their eyes were bloodshot as they stared at Su Zimo on the giant screen. They wished they could rush in and tear him to pieces. The Cold Eye King gritted his teeth and didn't say a word. Like a wild beast, he stared at the giant screen not far away. Brother Han Mu. The Stone Demon King sighed. This is not Xia Yin Zhan's fault, but the Stone World and the Sword World had a grudge against each other. Naturally, they would stand together and think about how to console the Cold Eye King. The Stone Demon King pondered for a moment before continuing. However, the person from the Sword World is too monstrous. He has comprehended a supreme superpower. Even the great emperors from ancient times would not be his match when they were at the true self realm. The future is long. When he steps into the Grotto Heaven realm, we will fight him and regain our dignity. The Cold Eye Monarch suddenly laughed. It sounded a little creepy and crazy, making one's hair stand on end. Many realm kings frowned and glanced at the Cold Eye King. Could it be that the Cold Eye Monarch suffered too much of a blow and went crazy? No, he's a Grotto Heaven realm king after all. His Tao heart is strong. Even if the number 1 sacred spirit of the Sky Eye world died, he wouldn't lose his mind. Many cultivators in the crowd whispered and pointed at the Cold Eye King. Brother Han Mu, are you all right? The Stone Demon King frowned and couldn't help but ask. Well done, Xia Yin. The Cold-Eyed Monarch did not bother with the Stone Demon Monarch. He suddenly exclaimed. Many realm kings looked at the Cold Eye King strangely. Su Zhu from the Sword World had defeated him in 1 round, and he was considered to have done well? Lu Yun and the other Peak Lords looked at each other. They could all tell that the Cold Eye King was implying something. At this moment, the Cold Eye Monarch pointed his finger at Su Zimo's figure on the screen and asked, Do you know why Xia Yin still chose to detonate his Dao Fruit and Heavenly Eye after being devoured by the 6 paths reincarnation? Everyone in the square fell silent. In their minds, it was just Xia Yin's last struggle because he was unwilling to accept defeat. In fact, he hadn't caused any harm to Su Zimo. You're all wrong. The Cold Eye King suddenly laughed and pointed at Su Zimo on the screen. Look carefully, Xia Yin took the token of bestowment from Su Zhu's waist. Everyone looked in the direction the Cold Eye King was pointing. As expected, the token of bestowment from Su Zimo's waist was nowhere to be found. According to the Cold Eye King, Xia Yin must have used the impact of the Eye of Reincarnation to drag the token of bestowment from Su Zimo's waist into the 6 paths of reincarnation. Many kings shook their heads and sighed as they looked at the smiling Cold Eye King. Their eyes were filled with pity. A realm king couldn't help but chuckle. So Xia Yin's final counterattack didn't hurt Su Zhu at all. He only lost the token of bestowment from his waist. Many of the true spirits felt the same way. Sword World Su Zhu had won this battle. He'd only lost a token of bestowment and was completely unharmed. Many immortal kings seemed to have thought of something at this time, and their expressions changed. The token of bestowment. If he lost it in the fiend battlefield, he'd have to find a spatial tear to escape. Otherwise, Sword World Su Zhu wouldn't be able to leave the fiend battlefield. And now, Sword World Su Zhu had just fought a great battle and even used his most powerful combat art, the 6 paths of reincarnation. How much strength did he have left? Although he still had immortal eradication and limitless yin and yang, he was only in the Kongming realm. Using any of his primordial spirits would consume an unimaginable amount of primordial spirit. Even with the divine elephant tusk, how many primordial spirits could a Kongming realm primordial spirit release? According to everyone's speculations, Su Zimo could only release 1 primordial spirit at most, and that would be his limit. If he continuously released immortal eradication and limitless yin and yang, his primordial spirit would collapse before he could kill his opponent. Only now did everyone realize that Xia Yin's move was too ruthless. This was equivalent to cutting off Sword World Su Zhu's escape route. Xia Yin was using his own life to tell the remaining true spirits in the fiend battlefield that this was their only chance to kill Sword World Su Zhu. End of chapter. Chapter 2868. Sky Tribute Square. Everyone finally realized why the Cold Eye Monarch would suddenly laugh like a maniac, and even laugh so happily. Although Xia Yin was dead, he'd used another method to drag Sword World Su Zhu into the abyss. This was the ultimate sacrifice of a life for a life. The Cold Eye King glared at Lu Yun and gritted his teeth. Lu Yun, it's true that my clan's Xia Yin is dead, but your Sword World Su Zhu won't be able to hold out much longer. Xia Yin will be waiting for him on Acheron's path. Those from Sword World grimaced. This move of Xia Yin's was truly too ruthless. Immortal King Yulan pondered for a while and said, I don't think so. Taoist Su Zhu has just been baptized by a supreme divine ability and is in peak condition. His nascent spirit should be able to withstand the immortal slaying sword and the limitless yin and yang. Who would dare step forward in this situation? Haha. The Cold Eye Monarch laughed again. He extended a finger and glanced at Yulan Immortal King with extreme disdain. He shook his finger and said, No, 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 you are too naive. So what if Su Zhu can release 2 peerless divine abilities? How many supreme gods could he resist? 2 or 3? The other kings nodded, knowing that the Cold Eye King's judgment was correct. Su Zhu was still the strongest among the sacred spirits, but he was in danger because he'd lost his bestowment medallion and couldn't leave the battlefield immediately. Even if he could unleash 2 supreme divine powers, as long as 2 supreme true spirits stood out, they would be able to block and neutralize it. The Cold Eye Monarch continued, I admit that Su Zhu is the strongest in the true first realm, but how many true spirits can he withstand? Of the 100 or so sacred spirits, we only need 10 to step forward. There's no need for 10. As long as 5 step forward, Su Zhu will be dead without a doubt. Lu Yun remained silent, but his face was a bit pale. This situation had far exceeded his expectations. Even summoning the Sword World Sovereign would be of no help, nor would the Peak Lords be of any help. At this moment, there were more than 100 supreme true spirits gathered around Mount Mang. There were also 10 great evil demons eyeing it covetously. Once the battle broke out, there would be more than 10 sacred spirits attacking Su Zimo amidst the chaos. Su Zimo's Tao fruit contained 5 supreme combat arts and even the world-shaking 6 paths of reincarnation. Who wouldn't be tempted? So what if he had immortal execution? Even if Su Zimo had the body of the 6 paths of reincarnation and the grade 12 creation green lotus, his body and spirit would be destroyed without a corpse or corpse left behind by the dozens of supreme true spirits. In fact, even if he had the 6 paths of reincarnation and the grade 12 creation green lotus, his body and spirit would be destroyed. Even an immortal king would have to avoid the brunt of such an attack. Su Zimo had no way of escape. Xia Yin of the Sky Eye clan is too despicable. Yu Lan couldn't help cursing. Despicable? The Cold Eye monarch sneered. I've said it before. Those who kill my clan will have to pay the price. This is the path Su Zhu chose. He'll have to pay the price. What the monarchs could see, the true spirit experts in the fiend battlefield naturally could as well. Su Zhu lost his bestowment token. He has no other way out. A Tao fruit that contains 5 supreme divine abilities. Interesting, the surrounding atmosphere was gradually changing. Suppressed discussions could be heard from the crowd. After all, the battle just now was too shocking. Many of the true spirit experts were still wary of Su Zimo. The Yaksha specter looked at Su Zimo with a bloodthirsty glint in its eyes as it licked its lips. Among the 10 great demons, he wasn't the only one who wanted to kill Su Zimo. The swordsman Luo Jun sensed this and said sternly, "Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't have any ideas about him." A man with bloodshot eyes chuckled and asked, "What does that have to do with you?" Above Mount Mang, Su Zimo stood in the air with a calm expression. The bestowment token should have fallen into the netherworld with Xia Yin's vengeful spirit and couldn't be retrieved. He had long noticed this, but he didn't care. Losing the token would have no effect on him. He could just get another one when he returned to the bestowment world. If he wanted to leave the fiend battlefield, he just needed to find a spatial rift. However, the atmosphere suddenly became a little strange. Originally, the numerous true spirits gathered around and looked at him with endless shock and fear. But now, the way these supreme true spirits looked at him gradually changed, revealing a trace of greed and enmity. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he guessed what those people were thinking. It seemed that some people were tired of living. Su Zimo's expression turned cold. Although a few of the 10 great demons had evil thoughts, they didn't dare to act rashly in front of more than 100 true spirits. At this time, if they took the initiative to go forward, they would easily become the target of public criticism. Only in the chaos would there be an opportunity. God's son Ming Hui, Sherpa from the Stone World, and Xuewen from the Blood World looked at each other and were ready to attack. The 3 of them more or less had some grudges with Su Zimo and the Sword Realm and had already formed an alliance. Su Zhu could at most release 2 supreme divine powers, the limitless Yin Yang and the immortal slaying sword. This was the best opportunity for the 3 of them. The surrounding true spirits were still hesitating and a little afraid. If they waited for the others to make up their minds and react, once the situation fell into chaos, it was uncertain who would obtain Su Zhu's Tao fruit. At this thought, the 3 of them communicated with their divine senses and split into 3 directions. With a loud roar, they rushed towards Su Zimo with murderous intent. Without any communication, the 3 of them wouldn't give Su Zimo any time to breathe. The 3 of them didn't hold back and directly used 3 supreme divine powers to suppress him. Once the Tao fruit was obtained, they would immediately leave the demon battlefield. Sherpa, how dare you? Lin Xuanjun had been paying attention to Sherpo's movements. When she saw Sherpa move, she didn't hesitate and immediately attacked. A cold and sharp sword light tore through the void and blocked Sherpo's path. It instantly cut off his path and stopped him. Damn it, stinky woman. Sherpa flew into a rage, cursing loudly. He wasn't afraid of Lin Xuanjun. However, if he was delayed here by Lin Xuanjun, he would have no chance of obtaining Su Zhu's Tao fruit. Sherpa held the giant axe in his hand and directly activated his blood qi and released his bloodline vision. he shouted. "Get out of my way." Lin Xuanzhen's eyes were filled with murderous intent. She activated her primordial spirit and held a sword in one hand and formed a hand seal with the other. A bloody long sword quickly condensed in front of her. The next moment, killing intent soared into the sky and shook the heavens. Supreme divine power, immortal slaying sword. Chapter 2869. Sherpa released his bloodline vision with the intention of forcing Lin Xuanzhen to retreat so that he could find an opening to kill Su Zimo. Sherpa was confident that he could defeat Lin Xuanzhen in terms of physical strength and bloodline. However, he did not expect Lin Xuanzhen to be so decisive. Her only goal was to stop Sherpa. Therefore, Lin Xuanzhen released the supreme divine power, celestial slaying sword. Lunatic! Sherpa cursed. He felt the cold, murderous intent from the celestial slaying sword and did not dare to be careless. He quickly formed a spell. The celestial slaying sword was a killing technique among the supreme divine powers. His bloodline vision could not withstand it at all. He could only resist it with his supreme divine power. Negative sky seal. Sherpa quickly formed a spell, and his aura suddenly changed. He pointed to the sky with one hand and formed a seal with the other. Even the heavens were rumbling and shaking. The supreme divine power, negative sky seal. When the seal was formed, it drew the power of the heavens and pressed down with full force. It was unstoppable. At that moment, Sherpa seemed to be carrying the heavens as he formed a seal and crashed toward Lin Xuanzhen's celestial slaying sword. The battle between the two supreme divine powers. In fact, no matter who won, Lin Xuanzhen had already succeeded. She used the celestial slaying sword to force Sherpa to use his supreme divine power, which was equivalent to eliminating a huge threat for Su Zimo. On the other side, Divine Sun Ming Hui was the fastest. He was the first to arrive in front of Su Zimo. There was a rumble in his body, and golden blood rose. A shining pyramid appeared behind him. Around and below the pyramid, there were countless creatures kneeling and praying loudly with pious expressions. Divine Sun Ming Hui knew how powerful Su Zimo was, so he did not hold back. He directly used the Pratasa's most powerful technique, the bloodline vision. His aura skyrocketed. Not only that, the moment Divine Sun Ming Hui descended, the spell in his hand had already formed. Supreme divine power, sun and moon shine together. Ming Hui pointed at Su Zimo from afar. In the next moment, a blazing sun and a full moon appeared in front of him. The two stars emitted dazzling light that quickly spread and filled the entire void. On this battlefield, light was everywhere, and divine splendor was shining. All living beings within the light had to endure the baptism and purification of this divine radiance. Every ray of divine light was composed of countless rays of light. And each ray of light was like a divine sword or divine spear that could pierce through anything. The bloodline anomaly, combined with the supreme mystique, descended at the same time. Divine Sun Ming Hui unleashed his strongest attack. On the other side, Xuewen attacked. He had no intention of holding back, and immediately struck out with a supreme mystical power, space-time shackles. Two supreme divine powers descended at the same time. Even if Su Zhuyuanshen could still release the immortal slaying sword and the limitless yin and yang, how could he release them at the same time? Supreme divine powers were extremely taxing on the primordial spirit. Releasing two supreme divine powers consecutively and releasing two at the same time were two completely different concepts. Amidst the endless radiance, Su Zimo turned to look at Xuewen. That glance sent chills down Xuewen's spine. In that pair of eyes, the left eye was pitch black and the right eye was pure white. Two rays of light, one black and one white, suddenly burst forth from both eyes, condensing into a yin-yang twin fish in midair before rapidly rotating. The yin-yang twin fish had me in you and you in me. Their heads and tails were connected in an endless stream. Supreme divine power, limitless yin and yang. Su Zimo did not release any dermic arts and merely used his visual techniques to condense this supreme divine power. He chose to deal with me. This thought flashed through Xuewen's mind, and he could not help but feel a little annoyed. In that case, he would not have the chance to obtain Su Zhu's Dao fruit. Fellow Taoist Ming Hui, it's up to you now. Shui said loudly as he activated his Yuan Shin to continue strengthening the power of the space-time shackles, preparing to receive the limitless yin and yang. But soon, Shuiwen's expression changed drastically. Something was wrong. The power of the limitless yin and yang. Shuiwen gasped and shockingly discovered that his space-time shackles could not withstand the yin-yang millstone that was crushing over. Almost instantly, the space-time shackles shattered completely. In fact, the limitless yin-yang millstone was crushing towards him, trying to grind him into dust. What? Shuiwen was scared out of his wits. Indeed, there was a difference in power between supreme divine powers. Even if it was the same supreme divine power, its power would naturally be different when released by different people. However, in Shuiwen's opinion, his space-time shackles should not be too different from limitless yin and yang. He'd never imagined that such a scene would occur. In reality, it was indeed difficult to determine a victor in a clash between limitless yin and yang and space-time shackles. However, Su Zimo's limitless yin and yang was augmented by the power of the two god stones, illumination and nether glow. As such, the power of the supreme divine power was raised by an entire level. Exclamation point! Shuiwen was shocked and reacted slightly slower. Instantly, a sharp pain shot through his body and he spat out blood as though he was about to be torn apart. He did not have time to think as he slapped his storage bag and tossed out a blood-colored figure. The blood-colored figure collided with the limitless yin-yang millstone and exploded instantly, turning into an extremely filthy blood mist. This was a sanguine puppet given to him by his seniors of the lineage. At the critical moment, it could be thrown out and die for him. The limitless yin-yang millstone paused for a moment. However, it continued crushing down before long. The filthy blood mist was also destroyed by yin and yang and turned into nothingness. However, Shuiwen made use of the fleeting pause earlier on to summon the blood vine race's blood escape. He turned into a streak of blood light and temporarily escaped the range of the limitless yin-yang millstone. The blood escape consumed a lot of his blood qi. However, at that moment he could no longer care about that. Shuiwen activated his heavenly token and a beam of light flashed, enveloping his figure and disappearing from the fiend battlefield. The moment he left, the limitless yin-yang millstone crushed over and missed by a hair's breadth. When this scene fell into the eyes of the bystanders, it gave them a different feeling. The sword world's Su Zhu had only turned around to look at Shuiwen, and she had almost killed a supreme true spirit. Su Zimo's attention was not on Shuiwen, but on Divine Sun Ming Hui, who was in front of him. Divine Sun Ming Hui's combat power was indeed extremely strong. Even among the more than 100 supreme true spirits, he could be ranked among the top few. Su Zimo had to be more serious when facing the Protoss's bloodline phenomenon and the divine splendor of the sun and moon. Under the endless dazzling divine splendor, a blood-dripping sword light suddenly bloomed, forcibly tearing apart the divine splendor curtain around them. Supreme superpower, immortal slaying sword. While releasing the limitless yin-yang millstone, Su Zimo activated his primordial spirit and pinched his fingers, releasing a second supreme superpower. Two supreme superpowers were released at the same time, causing a huge wave on the battlefield. Divine Sun Ming Hui's eyes released endless divine light. He wanted to activate the sun and moon shining together curtain, but in the end, he could not resist the sharpness of the immortal slaying sword. Of course, even so, under the constant consumption of the two supreme superpowers, the power of the immortal slaying sword was not much left. It was directly suppressed by the bloodline phenomenon behind him. The error-free chapters of Eternal Holy King will continue to be updated in the hand-fighting bar. There are no advertisements in the website. Please bookmark and recommend the hand-fighting bar. If you like Eternal Holy King, please bookmark. Eternal Holy King hand-fighting bar is the fastest to update. Chapter 2870. Kill. After getting rid of the threat of the celestial extermination sword, Divine Sun Ming Hui pulled out a huge golden sword from his back. It shone brightly and shone brightly. With a loud shout, he charged toward Su Zimo instead of retreating. In close combat, the advantage of a Protoss's body and bloodline could be maximized. This large golden sword was a pure yang spirit treasure of the 9 tribulations. It was sharp and powerful. Coupled with the golden armor on his body and the mysterious and ancient pyramid behind him, divine Sun Ming Hui descended from the sky with endless divine brilliance. His aura reached its peak and was unparalleled. Su Zimo looked calm. With a thought, a strange weapon appeared in his palm. It was a horsetail whisk with a jade handle and white silk. The black-clothed woman of the 10 great demons saw the horsetail whisk and suddenly exclaimed. She was deep in thought. On the battlefield. In the face of divine Sun Ming Hui's ferocious attack, Su Zimo waved the horsetail whisk in his hand. The 3,000 white strands seemed to turn into an endless stream of weak water as they wrapped themselves around the huge golden sword. With every punch, the power of the large golden sword was reduced by a little. When the black-clothed woman saw this move, a strange light flashed across her eyes. Others did not know Su Zimo's horsetail whisk move, but she knew it best. It was obviously inherited from the 9 heavens Xian Envi Great Emperor. This move brought out the soft and gentle power of the horsetail whisk to the extreme. Even if she used this move, it would not be much better. Divine Sun Ming Hui's large golden sword was unparalleled, but when it slashed down, it was entangled by the 3,000 white silk threads and its power was exhausted. Divine Sun Ming Hui felt as if his sword had cut cotton, which made him extremely uncomfortable. Before he could react, he suddenly felt a violent vibration from the large golden sword. It contained a twisting and tearing force. He could not hold his palm tightly. A sharp pain came from his hand, and blood was already flowing out. The next moment, a shocking divine power came from the other end of the large golden sword. Divine Sun Ming Hui could not hold the hilt of the sword. The horsetail whisk in Su Zimo's hand swept the large golden sword back. He had lost his divine weapon. The golden sword was a 9 tribulation pure yang numinous treasure. It was extremely important to him. If he wasn't wrong, the horsetail whisk with a jade handle and white silk should also be a pure yang spirit treasure. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to block the sharp edge of the golden great sword. Give me your life. Divine Sun Ming Hui was enraged. He roared and took a step forward. Golden chi and blood surged as he raised his hand and punched towards Su Zimo. This reaction showed divine Sun Ming Hui's powerful close combat skills and experience. If the golden sword was taken away and he chose to retreat, Su Zhu would have a huge advantage with 2 pure yang spiritual treasures. But now, Su Zhu's horsetail whisk had retreated with the golden sword. Before the 2 pure yang spiritual treasures could retaliate, divine child Ming Hui had already closed in. The 2 of them were so close to each other. At this distance, there wasn't much space for Su Zhu to control the 2 pure yang spirit treasures. Divine child Ming Hui forced Su Zhu to fight him barehanded in close combat. To be able to cultivate to this stage and grow into a supreme true spirit, other than comprehending supreme divine powers, one must have gone through countless bloody battles. Which one of them was easy to deal with? Divine Sun Ming Hui had thought of almost everything except for one thing. Su Zimo's body and bloodline were the rank 12 creation Qinglian's body. With Qinglian's body as the foundation, even if Su Zimo didn't use his qi and blood, his body had undergone the baptism of many supreme divine powers. It wasn't something divine Sun Ming Hui's body and bloodline could contend with. Facing divine Sun Ming Hui's punch, Su Zimo didn't dodge. Instead, he punched back. You're courting death. Divine Sun Ming Hui hadn't finished speaking when their fists violently collided, erupting with an earth-shattering sound. Boom! The fists collided, and the earth shook. At this moment, it was as if the world was trembling slightly, and time stood still. The next moment, a blazing halo burst out from the center of the collision. It spread rapidly in all directions, setting off a huge true essence wave. Mount Mang had collapsed just now, when Su Zimo and Xia Yin were fighting, and had turned into a pile of rubble. Now, their fists were colliding, and neither of them took half a step back. The true essence shockwaves that erupted from the collision directly swept up the countless stones and gravel beneath the 2 of them, pushing them in all directions. Under the two of them, a huge circular crater appeared. This Su Zhu can actually withstand Divine Sun Ming Hui's punch with his bloodline anomaly? After all, she has undergone the baptism of 5 supreme divine powers. She has long shed her mortal body and undergone a qualitative change. Something doesn't seem right. Among the onlooking supreme true spirits, someone noticed the abnormality. It seems that Ming Hui is at a disadvantage. His bloodline anomaly has cracked. What? This voice caused an uproar in the surroundings. At this moment, there were changes on the battlefield. The mysterious ancient pyramid behind Divine Sun Ming Hui was trembling slightly, and countless rocks were falling off the pyramid. The thousands of creatures that were kneeling below also stopped praying, revealing a look of horror as they fled. Divine Sun Ming Hui, as a member of the royal family of Protoss, had actually lost in a close combat battle. When the onlookers saw this scene, although they were extremely shocked, they were far from being able to feel the horror in Divine Sun Ming Hui's heart. Su Zimo's punch had not only dispersed his bloodline anomaly, but it had also shattered his pride and confidence. Undefeatable. These were the only words left in Divine Sun Ming Hui's mind. On the surface, he didn't seem to be injured, but a sharp pain came from his right arm, and all the bones in his body felt like they were about to fall apart. Retreat. Divine Sun Ming Hui didn't hesitate and turned to leave. The situation he was facing was different from the blood vein. Just now, if the blood vein reacted slightly slower, it would be crushed by the yin-yang infinite millstone. Although Divine Sun Ming Hui knew that he was no match for Su Zimo, he didn't feel too much danger, so he didn't immediately take out the token of heaven and retreat from the evil demon battlefield. Naturally, he had his own plans. Now, he could retreat from the battlefield, avoid Su Zhu's attack, and wait for the others to attack. In the chaos, he might have a chance to fight for Su Zhu's fruit of Tao. Trying to escape? Su Zimo's eyes were cold. Divine Sun Ming Hui was obviously here to kill him, so he wouldn't be merciful. Su Zimo swung the Tai horsetail whisk, swept up the golden sword, and slashed at Divine Sun Ming Hui. Swoosh! The speed of this sword was too fast. And it was a 9 tribulation pure yang spiritual treasure golden sword. As the wind whistled, the sword blade had already descended. Divine Sun Ming Hui didn't seem to be able to dodge it. He frantically operated the golden armor on his body, and it surged with rays of divine light. Clang! The golden sword landed on the golden armor. Just one strike was enough to almost shatter the golden armor. Cracks appeared on the back of Divine Sun Ming Hui's armor. But the huge force from the golden sword pushed Divine Sun Ming Hui, causing his speed to skyrocket. He turned into a golden light and instantly widened the distance between him and Su Zimo. Ha! Divine Sun Ming Hui laughed and said, "Su Zhu, thank you for sending me off." Chapter 2871. Although Divine Sun Ming Hui was severely injured and coughed up blood, he still looked smug. After escaping, he did not forget to provoke. Su Zimo sneered. Although Divine Sun Ming Hui's movement technique was fast, he could not escape from his pursuit. As long as he released the rock wings, he would be able to catch up in a few breaths. In a flash, Su Zimo was about to circulate his secret skill to condense the wings of the rock when he caught sight of someone. Instinctively, he stopped his secret skill and chased after that person. Divine Sun Ming Hui also saw this person when he was escaping. A Taoist nun was walking towards him. Her sleeves were fluttering, and she looked extraordinary. However, she was carrying a huge square chessboard on her back, which looked quite strange. Divine Sun Ming Hui's eyes lit up. Chess deity Junyu from the heaven realm. Before this, he had planned to use the chess deity's saber to kill Su Zhu. That was why he spread the news that Zither deity and Moonlight Sword Immortal had died at Su Zhu's hands. However, Su Zhu and Xia Yin had agreed to fight here. He thought that Su Zhu would definitely die, so he did not push the matter further. Now that he suddenly saw chess deity Junyu walking towards him, the plan to kill Su Zhu with a borrowed knife came to his mind again. It seems that chess deity Junyu already knows that Zither deity and Moonlight Sword Immortal died at Su Zhu's hands. Divine Sun Ming Hui thought again and said, this chess deity might also be here for Su Zhu's fruit of Tao. Su Zimo was chasing behind Divine Sun Ming Hui. When Divine Sun Ming Hui saw chess deity Jun Yu walking towards him, he naturally thought that the chess deity was going to deal with Su Zimo. Taoist Jun Yu, I've heard a lot about you. As the two approached, Divine Sun Ming Hui greeted first and pointed behind him. This is the evil thief who killed Zither deity and Taoist Moonlight from the Heaven Realm. I'm here to help you take revenge for the two Taoists from the Heaven Realm. Chess deity Jun Yu did not waste any time. She did not say a word and immediately formed a spell to form a space-time imprisonment divine power. Great! Divine Sun Ming Hui was overjoyed and could not help but shout. Chess deity Jun Yu's decisiveness was beyond his expectations. On the other hand, the chess immortal Jun Yu was the first to release her supreme divine ability. After killing Su Zhu, neither of them had any supreme divine ability left to use. His chances of obtaining the Tao fruit had increased by another point. Fellow Taoist Jun Yu is truly a killer. Before Divine Sun Ming Hui could finish his praise, he suddenly paused and his expression changed. Chess deity Jun Yu's space-time imprisonment was formed, but it did not hit Su Zimo who was behind him. Instead, it fell on his head. This? Divine Sun Ming Hui's face was blank and his expression was one of astonishment. Even though he was shackled by the space-time imprisonment, he still could not understand what was going on. Did the chess deity Jun Yu's supreme divine power hit the wrong person? After cultivating to this level, how could he possibly make a mistake? Could it be that chess goddess Jun Yu wants to kill me as well and take Su Zhu's fruit for herself? Looking at such an extraordinary Taoist nun, he didn't expect that her mind would be so vicious. At that moment, chess deity Jun Yu seemed to see the confusion in Divine Sun Ming Hui's heart. She pointed at Su Zimo, who was not far away, and said lightly, I know that person. I'm very familiar with him. Divine Sun Ming Hui's eyes suddenly widened, and his face turned pale. A mouthful of blood was stuck in his chest. If not for the space-time imprisonment, he would have vomited blood. Chess deity Jun Yu took down the star chessboard behind her and was about to strike and kill Divine Sun Ming Hui when Su Zimo's voice suddenly rang out. You're welcome, Ming Hui. Su Zimo said, I'll send you off again. Not long after Divine Sun Ming Hui said, Thank you for sending me off, Su Zimo's reply had already arrived. The 3,000 white strands of the Tai horsetail whisk suddenly condensed and turned into an extremely sharp spear. It instantly pierced into the back of Divine Sun Ming Hui's head. The Tai horsetail whisk was a strange weapon that combined both hardness and softness. This time, even the body and bloodline of a Protoss could not withstand it. Divine Sun Ming Hui's sea of consciousness was instantly pierced. His primordial spirit was destroyed and he died. The divine son of a generation did not even have time to use his Feng Tian token before he was buried in the evil demon battlefield. The white strands of the Tai horsetail whisk swept the Feng Tian token from Divine Sun Ming Hui's waist. This was Divine Sun Ming Hui's Feng Tian token. Su Zimo could not activate it to leave the evil demon battlefield. However, there were many battle merits on the token. Once he left the fiend battlefield and obtained another heaven bestowment badge, he would be able to transfer all the battle merits from the Ming Hui badge to his heaven bestowment badge. Actually, chess deity Jun Yu could have killed Divine Sun Ming Hui just now. However, Su Zimo intended to be one step ahead of her. In the current situation, chess deity Jun Yu was on his side. By trapping Divine Sun Ming Hui, she had already offended the Protoss. If he allowed chess deity Jun Yu to kill Divine Sun Ming Hui with her own hands, the Protoss would definitely vent all his hatred and anger on her. Su Zimo heard that chess deity Jun Yu did not have any immortal king experts to escort her when she came to the Feng Tian world. If Divine Sun Ming Hui died after chess deity Jun Yu, Su Zimo was worried that Jun Yu might not be able to return to the heaven world alive. That was why he killed Ming Hui first. Su Zimo did not touch the two most valuable items on Divine Sun Ming Hui's body, his Tao fruit and his storage bag. Instead, he left them for chess deity Jun Yu. At that moment, Su Zimo had become the target of public criticism. Among the more than 100 supreme true spirits, many of them had the intention to kill him. Chess deity Junyu was taking a huge risk by standing on his side at that moment. A Dao fruit and a storage bag were what chess deity Junyu deserved. There was not much interaction between the two of them. Su Zimo nodded slightly at chess deity, indicating for her to be careful. Then, he turned and rushed to another battlefield. On that battlefield, Sherpa from the Stone Realm was fighting with Lin Xuanjun, and it was difficult to tell who would win. Sherpa noticed that Su Zimo was rushing towards him. His expression changed drastically, and his heart skipped a beat. He was fighting with Lin Xuanjun. Although he had the upper hand, it was difficult for him to win in a short period of time. If there was another Su Zimo, he would definitely lose. Get lost. Sherpa swung his shocking stone axe, and his body flickered with a dark golden light. His entire body seemed to have become one with the stone axe, and there was no distinction between them. He unleashed a powerful attack at Lin Xuanjun. Boom! Lin Xuanjun had already entered the absolute sword realm. His eyes were empty and lifeless. He had cut off his 7 emotions and 6 desires, and there was no fear. Facing this attack, Lin Xuanjun did not dodge. Instead, he stabbed with his sword horizontally. The tip of the sword trembled, and the sword beam shot straight towards Sherpa's glabella. Of course, Sherpa could split Lin Xuanjun into 2 halves with his axe. However, he would not be able to escape Lin Xuanjun's fatal strike. If the sword beam entered his sea of consciousness, he would definitely die. A life for a life. What a lunatic! Sherpa cursed. He could only retract his shocking axe and block Lin Xuanjun's sword beam. As a result, he had lost his best chance to escape with his life if he was slightly delayed. In the next moment, Su Zimo descended from the sky. Chapter 2872. The 3,000 silver strands of the Tai horsetail whisk spread over and split into dozens of bundles. They were like spirited pythons that coiled around Sherpa. Sherpa waved his shocking stone axe and slashed continuously. Together with the secret technique of the stone tribe, he released streaks of gray true essence that were ferocious and unparalleled. However, the 3,000 silver strands seemed to be endless. Although the shocking stone axe forced back a few bundles, there were still many silver strands that flowed in through the gaps of the axe's movements. Large divine weapons like the shocking stone axe were extremely powerful and ferocious. In a head-on confrontation, they had the absolute upper hand. However, such divine weapons were slightly lacking in terms of agility. Although Sherpa was extremely strong, he could not wield the shocking stone axe without any gaps. The Tai horsetail whisk's silver strands took advantage of this. Su Zimo waved the Tai horsetail whisk and did not choose to fight the shocking stone axe head-on. The Tai horsetail whisk was indeed a combination of hardness and softness. However, even if it was in its most ferocious form, it could not fight against a large divine weapon like the shocking stone axe. However, in the form of soft silver strands, it could overcome hardness with softness. After the 3,000 silver strands broke through Sherpa's defense, they seemed to have turned into countless silver needles that pierced towards Sherpa's body. The strongest thing about the Stone Tribe was their physical body. Legend had it that the ancestor of the Stone Tribe was a piece of green stone that received the fortune of heaven and earth and the essence of the sun and moon. He cultivated and achieved the Tao, creating the Stone Tribe. Even ordinary weapons would find it difficult to break through the defenses of the Stone Tribe's physical body. At this moment, Sherpa's body expanded slightly and his skin turned gray as if an indestructible stone skin had condensed. The 3,000 silver strands were sharp, but when they pierced this layer of stone skin, they all slid down a layer and could not pierce through at all. Clang, clang, clang. With a series of crisp sounds, Sherpa was unharmed. Su Zimo's expression did not change and he immediately changed his move. The 3,000 silver strands wrapped around Sherpa's body, limbs, and neck, constantly tightening and binding him in midair. Buzz. A sword hum sounded. After all, Lin Xuanjun was also a supreme true spirit and would not miss this rare opportunity. He swung away Sherpa's shocking stone axe and stabbed Sherpa's glabella. Sherpa did not dodge. His limbs were bound by the Tai horsetail whisk, and he was unable to dodge the sword. Condense! Sherpa activated his primordial spirit again and shouted softly. There seemed to be another layer of gray and rough skin on his body. It was covered with the marks of time, and it was unknown how many divine weapons he had experienced and how many battles he had fought. Clang! Lin Xuanzhen's sword pierced the space between Sherpo's eyebrows, but there was a sound of metal and stone colliding, and sparks flew. This sword actually failed to pierce through Sherpo's skin. Lin Xuanzhen frowned slightly. The long sword in her hand had already been bent into a huge arc, showing the power of the sword. Even so, it was still unable to injure Sherpa. It only left a sword mark on his forehead. Haha! Sherpa laughed loudly and said proudly, "This is a pure yang spirit treasure passed down by my stone clan for many years, the ancient leather battle armor. Combined with my stone clan's boulder secret technique, even a rank 9 pure yang spirit treasure can't penetrate my defense. The two of you are still too inexperienced if you want to kill me." For someone like Sherpa, his combat strength was ranked at the top even among more than 100 supreme true spirits, and he would definitely have some powerful trump cards. With this ancient leather battle armor coupled with his boulder secret technique, he could almost do whatever he wanted in the fiend battlefield. Even if he could not defeat his opponent, he could escape unscathed. Even a rank 9 pure yang spirit treasure could not break through his defense, and almost no one could threaten his life. In the face of such an opponent, Lin Xuanzhen withdrew his sword and stood there, feeling that he didn't know where to start. Right then, Su Zimo arrived before Sherpa and slapped down on the top of Sherpo's head with a flip of his palm. Ha! Sherpa was bound by the Tai horsetail whisk and did not break free or dodge. He merely glanced sideways at Su Zimo and laughed. "A rank 9 pure yang spirit treasure can't even pierce my skin. Are you trying to kill me with your bare hands? Su Zhu, you're too naive." Su Zimo did not reply and continued slapping with an indifferent expression. Right now, his grade 12 creation Qinglian body was much more frightening than a pure yang spirit treasure if he released his full strength. Even if he was barehanded and did not use his blood qi, he could take on any pure yang spirit treasure. The combination of the boulder secret technique of the stone race and the ancient leather battle armor was indeed indestructible and could defend against almost any sharpness. However, that defense might not be able to defend against the impact of blunt weapons. It was like wearing steel armor. Although it could defend against the sharpness of sabers and swords, it could not defend against the impact of blunt weapons such as hammers and axes. That kind of impact could penetrate the steel armor and act on the flesh and blood inside. Right now, Su Zimo's palm was such a blunt weapon. Bang, bang, bang. Su Zimo slapped down 3 times consecutively as though he was defeated. With each slap, Sherpo's body would tremble. The ancient leather battle armor and stone skin above Sherpo's head did not show any signs of damage. However, the power released by Su Zimo's palm penetrated through the armor and stone skin and surged into Sherpo's consciousness. After 3 slaps, Sherpo was already stunned and his mind was in a mess. His face was purplish and his eyes were bloodshot, bulging out of their sockets. Just now, the slaps were no longer palms. They were more like stone tablets that blotted out the skies and smashed down like mountains. Before Sherpo could react, there was a 4th slap with a bang. Sherpo's body shuddered. His eyes, ears, mouth and nose were slowly seeping with scarlet blood. It was a shocking sight and his gaze turned blank as his expression stiffened. Bang! The 5th slap landed. Snap! Right in front of countless gazes, Sherpo's body seemed to have shrunk by a chunk. To be precise, Sherpo's head was shortened by Su Zimo's slap and was almost stuffed into his neck. The light in Sherpo's eyes quickly dimmed and the vitality in his body also began to dissipate. His ancient leather battle armor and stone skin still looked unscathed on the outside. However, his head had already been smashed into paste by Su Zimo's 5 slaps. His essence spirit had dissipated and only a Dao fruit was still intact. Inside and outside the evil demon battlefield, everyone was dumbfounded and shocked. From the time Xue Wen, Sherpa, and Ming Hui attacked until now, The entire process seemed long, but in fact, it was only 10 breaths of time. In these short 10 breaths, 2 supreme true spirits died tragically and were buried in the evil demon battlefield. The luckiest one was also severely injured and had to sacrifice a blood puppet to release the blood escape technique to escape with his life. It was too tragic. Including Xia Yin, 3 people in the top 10 of the Battle Merit Jade Tablet had already died. And these 3 people had all died in the hands of one person. Among the many onlooking true spirits, there were more than 100 supreme true spirits who were originally ready to make a move, but when they saw this scene, their hearts turned cold. Chapter 2873. On the Sky Tribute Square. Even though the kings from the various large realms were used to seeing blood and death, they were still speechless when they saw the scene just now. Xia Yin, Sherpa, Divine Sun Ming Hui, any one of them would be an unparalleled existence among the true spirits. Who would have thought that they would all die in the demonic battlefield? Looking at the black-haired man from the 7th district, many of the kings secretly overturned their previous evaluation of Su Zhu and re-evaluated him. In such a situation, Su Zimo had lost his Sky Tribute token and became the target of public criticism. It was almost certain that he would die. When Sherpa, Ming Hui Divine Sun, and Shuewen made their moves, everyone thought that the battle was already over. Who would have thought that there would be such a change? Of course, in everyone's opinion, the biggest reason for the current outcome was Lin Xuanzhen and Jun Yu from the Heaven Realm. The 2 of them had stood up and provided great help to Su Zhu from the Sword Realm. Lin Xuanzhen blocked Sherpa, while chess deity Jun Yu released the space-time imprisonment to trap deity Ming Hui. Under the space-time imprisonment, Divine Sun Ming Hui could only watch helplessly as Su Zimo killed him. He couldn't even self-destruct his Dao fruit. Su Zhu from the Sword Realm looks like a scholar, but when he attacks, he's really decisive. He's like a demon god. If not for that, he would have been besieged to death. In such a situation, he can't be merciful. Only by killing with lightning and blood can he intimidate the other true spirits. He did it. There were many true spirits who were ready to attack just now, but now they are hesitating and don't dare to go forward. This might be his only chance to survive. Not necessarily. Another king said, killing 3 supreme true spirits in a row is indeed terrifying, but this kid is already an arrow at the end of its flight. As long as a few more supreme true spirits stand out, this kid will still not be able to escape death. There are people who want to kill him, and there are also people who want to help him. Those 2 are them. He, Lin Xuanzhen and Chess Immortal have already released their supreme divine powers. Even if they stand beside him, they will not be able to block the other supreme true spirits. Another king laughed and asked in return, in such a situation, do you think it's better to hit someone when they're down or to seek justice? Lu Yun and the others from the Sword World wore grave expressions as they listened to the discussions around them. They also knew that the 100-odd supreme true spirits in the evil demon battlefield did not have much of a relationship with Su Zimo. Even if they did not know each other, who would stand out to help him? If it were them, they might not stand up to help a stranger in such a situation. But in the current situation, there would definitely be people who would take advantage of the situation. Not to mention that these supreme true spirits did not know Su Zimo and did not have any psychological burden. Even his best friends might hit him when he was down. Su Zimo was like an arrow at the end of its flight. If another 2 or 3 supreme true spirits stood out, he would not be able to escape this calamity. Su Zimo's killing methods might have deterred most of the supreme true spirits, but there would definitely be people who would make a move. This was the evil demon battlefield. Both sides were cultivators of the same level, and there were no rules to speak of. The Stone Cave King looked in the direction of the Sword World with a cold expression and said coldly, "The Sword World has really raised a prodigy." The Stone Cave King's voice was filled with resentment. But soon he changed the topic and said, "However, your prodigy who has comprehended 5 supreme divine powers is also going to die inside." The Stone Tribe and the Sword World were at odds with each other, and their grudges ran deep. Now that Sherpa had been killed by Su Zimo in public, one could imagine how furious the Stone Tribe was. The Protoss also looked at the sword world with an unfriendly expression. Lu Yun and the others weren't in the mood to argue with the likes of the Stone Cave King and the Cold Eye King. They stared fixedly at the giant screen, worried about Su Zimo's situation. The Chi Dragon King couldn't help but snort. In the evil demon battlefield, if one dies in a battle of the same level, it means one's skills are inferior. What's there to say? Moreover, the supreme true spirits of your 3 realms ganged up on Su Zhu, but were killed by her instead. If it were me, I would be too embarrassed to mention it. You! The Stone Cave King glared at the Chi Dragon King, at a loss for words. The Cold Eye King grinned at Lu Yun and the others. Don't worry, this Su Zhu won't live for long. She's too naive to think she can intimidate those supreme true spirits with her killing methods. Which one of those who've cultivated to the level of a true spirit isn't a fearless genius with a stable Tao heart? With so many of them gathered together, why would they be afraid of a spent force like you? Before the Cold Eye Monarch could finish his sentence, there seemed to be some changes in the fiend battlefield. After a brief moment of silence, someone stepped forward. A man from the shaman world clapped his hands lightly and looked at Su Zimo not far away with a smile. Wonderful, truly wonderful. Brother Su's methods have truly broadened my horizons. The supreme true spirit of the shaman world, Wu Xing. Wu Xing's eyes glowed with a faint green light as he changed the topic. However, Brother Su, how much strength do you have left after using so many supreme combat arts? Do you want to try? Su Zimo's gaze swept over him. It's enough to kill you. Haha. Wu Xing laughed. Brother Su, you don't have to keep up the pretense at a time like this. It's so tiring. Moreover, I'm not the only one who wants to attack Brother Su. As he spoke, Wu Xing looked to his side and raised his voice. This Su Zhu from the sword world has comprehended 5 supreme combat arts. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Let him leave this place, and no one will be able to touch his Tao fruit in the future. Wu Xing didn't step forward alone and act rashly. Instead, he provoked the supreme true spirits around him and bewitched them. As long as multiple true spirits stood out and attacked at the same time, Su Zhu would definitely die even if she had thousands of tricks up her sleeves. In the chaos, whoever could get Su Zhu's Tao fruit would depend on their own abilities. I'm afraid it won't be easy to get his Tao fruit. A supreme true spirit was rather cautious. He suddenly said, if at the last moment he self-destructs his Tao fruit, If the Tao fruit that contains 5 supreme combat arts explodes, the supreme true spirits besieging him might have to accompany him to Acheron. Fellow cultivator, you worry too much. Wu Xing smiled. It's not like he can self-destruct his Tao fruit just because he wants to. Just now, Divine Sun Ming Hui and Sherpa both died in Su Zhu's hands. Neither of them had the chance to self-destruct their Tao fruits. Everyone nodded. Wu Xing continued, as long as one of our supreme true spirits can control space-time imprisonment, it'll be enough to restrict him. Chapter 2874. Wu Xing's words did move some supreme true spirits. Exploding one's Tao fruit required unimaginable determination and courage. Exploding one's Tao fruit would cause one's soul to scatter and not enter the cycle of reincarnation. It was equivalent to cutting off one's own chance of reincarnation. Unless there was no other choice, even if a true spirit died, they might not choose to explode their Tao fruit. Instead, they would leave themselves a glimmer of hope. Moreover, in a battle, the slightest hesitation would cause one to lose the chance to explode their Tao fruit. Just like Divine Sun Ming Hui, who was restricted by the space-time imprisonment, could only watch as he died in Su Zhu's hands. And Sherpa did not expect that he would be killed by Su Zhu's 5 palms. According to the current situation, Sword Realm Su Zhu had already released the 6 paths of reincarnation, infinite yin and yang, celestial slaying sword, and 8-toothed divine power. His primordial spirit must have been exhausted to the extreme. Although he had said some harsh words to Wu Xing, it was most likely a bluff. Moreover, even if he still had some combat power, could he block the attacks of so many supreme true spirits? Moreover, Sword Realm Su Zhu saw Wu Xing gather the supreme true spirits to attack him, But he did not do anything drastic. He just cleaned up the battlefield as if no one was around and picked up the spoils of the battle just now. Sherpa had died, and his Dao fruit, divine weapon, and armor were all rare treasures. As a supreme true spirit of the stone realm, there must be many good things in his storage bag. This made everyone even more convinced of their speculation. If Su Zimo still had strength, with the decisiveness he showed just now, he would have already attacked Wu Xing. Now, he ignored him and only said some harsh words. It was probably because he was exhausted after the continuous battles. Wu Xing saw Su Zimo's state and was even more certain. He looked around and smiled. Which Taoist has mastered a supreme true spirit? Are you willing to restrain this person? I'll do it. The supreme true spirit of the Golden Crow realm, Lu Tan, stood out. His body was burning with golden flames as he stared at Su Zimo not far away with murderous intent. Another supreme true spirit of a super realm. What are you all still worried about? Wu Xing was still not in a hurry to attack. He raised his voice and said, "This is the evil demon battlefield. Even if you die in a battle of the same level, you can't blame others. Although the Sword Realm is a super great realm, it is impossible for them to break this rule and seek revenge from your realm just because this person died in the evil demon battlefield." It had to be said that Wu Xing really knew how to read people's minds. Many of the supreme true spirits present did not step forward. On one hand, they were wary of Su Zimo. On the other hand, they were wary of the Sword Realm behind him. But now, with the Sorcerer Realm and the Golden Crow Realm taking the lead, coupled with Wu Xing's words, it had indeed dispelled many of the supreme true spirit's concerns. "Count me in." A man dressed in colorful clothes stood out. His face was yellow as he said faintly, "Du Luo, the supreme true spirit of the poison world in the higher realm." To me, a man with a Taoist robe embroidered with stars stepped out. The falling star sky came from a higher realm, the astral plane. I'll join in the fun too. Since that's the case, it doesn't matter if I join in or not. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen supreme true spirits stood out from the crowd. Other than Wu Xing and Lu Tan from the super great realms, the rest were from the 9 higher realms. The Giant Realm, Poison Realm, Star Realm, Lifeless Realm, Bone Realm, Tomb Realm, Mystic Realm, Frost Realm, and Big Dipper Realm. There were also 6 supreme true spirits from the intermediate realms. The Scorpio Realm, Black Crow Realm, Thousand Spider Realm, Dragon Crane Realm, Wind Jackal Realm, and Fire Realm. There was even a supreme true spirit from the lower realms from the Yuanyang Realm. The 18 supreme true spirits stood out and spread out. They seemed to be walking casually, but they had already sealed off all possible exits for Su Zimo. Of course, most of the supreme true spirits still maintained a wait-and-see attitude. Some of the supreme true spirits were rather disdainful of bullying others with numbers. The other part purely had the mentality of watching a show. Among the 3,000 realms, there were also some realms that were on good terms with the Sword Realm. However, some of these realms had not given birth to any supreme true spirits, and some of the supreme true spirits in the realms did not know Su Zimo at all. They did not want to be involved and invite trouble. Of course, there were also a few people who were working hard to help Su Zimo deal with it. Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden had been injured by Su Zimo and formed a grudge. Now that there were 18 supreme true spirits standing out, the 2 of them were also a little tempted. Even if they could not obtain Su Zimo's Dao fruit, it was not bad to share the other treasures on him. As the paragons of the Wutong realm, you want to take advantage of the situation? Long Li seemed to have seen through their intentions and could not help but say with a mocking expression, "Although I, Long Li, am young, I disdain to do such a thing." Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden's faces were first filled with anger. But soon, the 2 of them looked at each other and felt that Long Li was right. Such behavior was indeed too shameless. Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden snorted coldly and did not say anything. For the time being, they gave up on attacking Su Zimo. "Everyone, we are all supreme true spirits from various realms. What kind of status do we have? What kind of pride do we have? How can we do such a thing as bullying others with numbers?" Mulyen of the Flower Realm could not stand it anymore and stood out and said loudly, "What's more, fellow Taoist Su Zhu of the Sword Realm has been fighting continuously and is exhausted. Don't you find it embarrassing to join forces to attack her at this time?" Su Zimo's heart warmed. He looked at Mulyen and nodded at her. In fact, he did not know Mulyen of the Flower Realm. But in the Sky Tribute Square, Mulyen had stood up for him once. The Peak Master of the Ultimate Sword Peak had once said that although Mulyen was a woman, she was not inferior to men and had a reputation for being chivalrous. Seeing her today, it was indeed true. In the current situation, she still dared to stand up for him and speak up for him. It really took a lot of courage. "Fellow Taoist Mulyen, you're wrong." Wu Xing chuckled and said, "This is not a ranking battle or an arena battle. Naturally, there are no rules and there is no need to fight one-on-one. This is the evil demon battlefield. When we face evil demons and sinful spirits, we are often besieged." "Who has complained?" Mulyen said loudly, "But we are supreme true spirits from the 3,000 realms, not evil demons and sinful spirits. Neither is fellow Taoist Su Zhu." Mulyen's words were indeed the key. Wu Xing's smile froze, but soon he spread his hands and said with a chuckle, "If fellow Taoist Mulyen can't stand it, she will naturally stand out to help fellow Taoist Su Zhu. This is reasonable. We didn't stop her. Fine, I'll help." Mulyen could not stand being provoked. She made up her mind and agreed. Although that was the case, Su Zimo's side was too small. Including her, chess deity Junyu, Long Li, Lin Xuanjin, and Sword Realm Su Zhu, there were only 5 of them. Among the 5 of them, Su Zhu did not have much combat strength left. The remaining 3 had just released their supreme divine abilities. She was the only one left who could release her supreme divine abilities. Facing 18 supreme true spirits at their peak, they could not resist at all. Chapter 2875. Fellow Taoist Mulyen, thank you for your kindness. At this moment, a voice transmission suddenly sounded in Mulyen's mind. It was from Su Zhu of the Sword Realm, who was not far away. "You can just watch this battle from the sidelines. There's no need to help me. I have my ways." After saying this, Sword Realm's Su Zhu nodded at her. Mulyen frowned slightly, confused. The 18 true spirits were about to join forces and surround Su Zhu. Su Zhu was already at the end of his rope. How could he deal with this? Even if he still had energy left, even if he could still release some other supreme divine abilities, could he block the 18 supreme divine abilities that came crashing down on him? Mulyen looked at Su Zhu with a complicated expression and sighed inwardly. She knew that Taoist Su Zhu didn't want to implicate her, so she asked her to watch the battle from the sidelines. With the 18 true spirits as the leader, there were many true spirits watching with murderous intent, ready to attack at any time. Su Zimo had just killed Xia Yin, Ming Hui, and Sherpa, the 3 true spirits. There were still other true spirits in the 3 realms who had yet to leave the fiend battlefield. They naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity. In another direction, there was a group of true spirits who were constantly watching the situation here. They were the sinful spirits of the fiend battlefield. There were even a few of the 10 great fiends who were ready to take advantage of the situation. Hee. Yaksha Spectre laughed strangely and said, "When the battle starts, I'm also ready to take a share of the loot. In the chaos, it's still unknown who will get Su Zhu's Dao fruit." As a void Yaksha, Yaksha Spectre was best at spatial Dao and could come and go without a trace. Although there were many true spirits, he was best at fishing in troubled waters. Taking advantage of the chaos, he did have a chance to take advantage of it. The black-clothed woman suddenly said coldly, "I advise you not to get involved in this. Do you remember what I told you before? You have a needle in your glabella. I'm afraid a calamity will befall you." Yaksha Spectre's face darkened as if a bucket of cold water had been poured on him. The woman in black pointed at Su Zimo in the distance and said, "This person is not to be trifled with. I advise you to stay away from him. To be able to remain so calm under such circumstances, do you think he doesn't have any other tricks up his sleeve?" I won't be surprised even if he unleashes 1 or 2 more supreme divine abilities. Yaksha ghostly spirit was shocked and quickly said, Don't scare me. He already released 4 supreme divine arts, how can he release 1 or 2? You're just exaggerating. On the other side, the man with red eyes and a face full of evilness sneered, so what if this Su Zhu still has the energy to unleash 1 or 2 techniques? 18 supreme divine abilities. Even if he has 4 or 5 supreme divine abilities, he's still going to die here. Upon hearing this, Yaksha ghost nodded and said, that's right. As for the black-clothed woman's reminder, he did not take it to heart. On Sky Tribute Square, everyone from the sword world had solemn expressions when they saw this scene. This time, even Kitsune had a trace of worry on her face. 18 supreme divine spirits attacking at the same time would definitely be earth-shattering. Although her master was strong, he would not be able to handle it. Of course, she still found a trace of abnormality on her master. With master's means, if he still had the strength to spare, he should have killed Wu Xing immediately when he saw Wu Xing come out to bewitch people and gather the supreme real spirits. However, her master did not do that. Instead, he allowed Wu Xing to summon all the supreme divine spirits to deal with him. What was her master trying to do? Was he really an arrow at the end of its flight? The Cold Eye Monarch, Stone Demon Monarch, Protoss, and other realms were all excited and expectant. How do we break out of this situation? The Flower World's Orchid Immortal Monarch sighed and shook her head. The Horned Dragon King frowned and pondered for a long time. Even if he put himself in Wu Xing's shoes, he could not think of a solution. There's no way out of a sure-death situation. These words flashed through the Horned Dragon King's mind. On the battlefield, the 18 supreme divine spirits led by Wu Xing and Lu Tan had already gathered. Behind them, many true spirit realm experts had surrounded them, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Everyone knew that once the flames of war were ignited, the 18 supreme divine powers would fall. It would definitely be an apocalyptic scene. Go back first. Su Zimo looked at Lin Xuanjun beside him and asked her to take out the heavenly token and leave this place. Lin Xuanjun did not say anything and shook her head with a determined gaze. Even if she knew that she would die, she would not abandon her fellow disciples. She cultivated the absolute sword Dao, but she was not truly heartless. On the contrary, she was more loyal and hot-blooded than many people. Su Zimo pondered for a while and did not persuade her anymore. He said, in that case, go to Junyu first. The two of you can take care of each other. As he spoke, Su Zimo suddenly attacked and released a few streaks of sword chi from his fingertips. He temporarily sealed Lin Xuanjun's quintessential essence and sent Lin Xuanjun to Junyu's side. Although Junyu was also on the battlefield, the 18 supreme divine spirits' target was her. Although Junyu would be affected when the battle broke out, she had inherited immortal King Ling Long's Dao techniques and was agile enough to bring Lin Xuanjun away from the battlefield. Bring her away from the battlefield. Su Zimo sent a voice transmission to Junyu. He paused for a moment and said, don't worry, I won't die. Junyu did not say much and only nodded. At that moment, Wu Xing, Lu Tan, and the other 18 supreme divine spirits were all looking at Su Zimo with piercing killing intent. Su Zimo looked coldly at the 18 supreme divine spirits and the true spirit realm experts behind them that were slowly approaching. In fact, he could even sense the hostility coming from the 10 evil demons in the distance. The entire world was like a huge chess game. He was not a chess piece, but a chess player who overlooked the entire situation. Everything was under his control. The air between heaven and earth seemed to have frozen. Kill! It was unknown who it was, but someone suddenly shouted. The flames of war were instantly ignited. Eternal night of darkness. Sun and moon shine together. Space-time imprisonment. Total annihilation. Negative heaven seal. Vermilion bird skyfire. 5-colored divine light. In an instant, 18 supreme divine powers quickly condensed and erupted from the hands of the 18 supreme divine spirits. They covered the sky and suppressed towards Su Zimo. The earth shook and the mountains shook. The wind and clouds changed color. Sand and stones flew everywhere. These supreme divine powers had been passed down for many years. Every one of them was terrifyingly powerful. It was like total annihilation. It was the power of total annihilation when the stars in the sky appeared beside the cultivator and exploded in an instant. As for the five-colored divine light, it represented the Tao techniques of the five powers of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. When gathered together, there was nothing that it could not overcome. End of chapter. Chapter 2876. 18 supreme theurgies couldn't help but explode. They covered the sky and instantly drowned Su Zimo. On the Sky Tribute Square, all the kings had different expressions when they saw this scene. Some were excited, some were gloating, and of course, there were also those who felt pity. Most of the realm kings didn't care and just wanted to watch the show. However, they still sighed when they saw this scene. He comprehended 5 supreme theurgies, and one of them is the 6 paths of reincarnation. It can be said that he's unprecedented. It's a pity that he's going to die in the fiend battlefield today. Sai, with his achievements in the true self realm, even the emperors of the past and present can't compare to him. He's too sharp. He's envied by the heavens. Hearing this, the people of the sword world were even more sorrowful and angry. Lu Yun couldn't hold it in anymore. He looked around and glanced at the shaman realm, golden crow realm, and other realms. He said coldly, Su Zhu isn't envied by the heavens. He's envied by all of you and was killed by all of you. The Nightmare Dragon King sighed softly and said, such a person didn't die in the hands of the fiend spirits, but was killed by the supreme true spirits of the 3,000 realms. What a great irony. Ha, you're wrong. Wu Shuowang of the shaman realm chuckled and said, the fiend battlefield is full of danger and chaos. Anyone can become the target of everyone. If my clan's Wu Xing is killed by you, Sword World's Su Zhu, in this battle, I will not complain, I will not harbor any resentment, and I will not blame anyone. Wu Shuowang shrugged as he spoke with a relaxed expression. There was a hint of mockery in his tone. In the current situation, Wu Xing had bewitched the supreme true spirits to besiege Sword Realm's Su Zhu. He had thrown out 18 supreme divine powers brainlessly, and Su Zhu had already been destroyed in both body and soul. How could Wu Xing have been killed by Su Zhu? King Lu Wu of the Golden Crow realm nodded slightly and said, Lu Yun, don't make it seem like your sword world has suffered a lot. You have to accept your death in the fiend battlefield. If you are afraid of death, then don't enter the demonic battlefield. Many of the kings of the 3,000 worlds curled their lips and thought to themselves, shameless. To be able to say that they were ganging up on him and adding insult to injury in such a righteous manner, it was truly somewhat shameless. Good. Trembling with rage, Lu Yun placed a hand on the sword at his waist. If he wasn't in the celestial bestowment world, he would have fought these people a long time ago. Speaking of it, the reason why Su Zhu ended up in her current state is actually related to the Heavenly Eye clan's Xia Yin. If it wasn't for Xia Yin's final gambit, Su Zhu wouldn't have been forced into such a state. That is indeed the case. On the surface, Su Zhu died under the 18 supreme techniques, but in reality, he was killed by Xia Yin. He is, after all, the number 1 on the battle merit Jade Steel. His methods are indeed extraordinary. He was able to kill Sword World's Su Zhu even before his death. The discussions in the crowd never stopped. However, no one realized that Xia Yin's final move hadn't killed Su Zhu of Sword Realm or 1 or 2 true spirits. Xia Yin had killed a whole group of people. The cold-eyed king's grief and indignation were somewhat comforted when he heard the discussions. He tilted his head and huffed. You think you can escape unscathed after killing my people? What a fool. Kitsune was still staring fixedly at the giant screen, trying her best to find her master's figure. Although the 18 supreme techniques were unstoppable and could destroy heaven and earth, she still refused to believe that her master would die just like that. Junior sister Baiming, don't look for him. Yun Ting sighed and said, Brother Su sigh. Master isn't dead. Kitsune suddenly spoke up. Yun Ting blinked and blurted out, Brother Su, he... He's nowhere to be seen. That was indeed the case. Under the envelopment of 18 supreme mystic powers, Su Zimo was drowned and devoured completely without leaving a single trace. He was most likely smashed into dust and turned into nothingness. Although Kitsune couldn't see her master, she believed that her master, who possessed the body of a rank 12 creation Qinglian, would at least have the bloodline phenomenon as a trump card and wouldn't be completely destroyed. Right then, a series of strange Sanskrit chants sounded from the Sky Tribute Square. The Sanskrit chants were so strange that everyone looked over instinctively. To their surprise, they discovered that the Sanskrit chants came from the 7th giant screen. It was the same battlefield in District 7. At that moment, the remaining power of the 18 supreme techniques had yet to dissipate completely and lingered on the battlefield. On the battlefield, mysterious and ancient Sanskrit chants were still reverberating around the 18 supreme true spirits, as if they were everywhere. What's going on? Where did the Sanskrit chants come from? What a powerful Buddhist Tao technique. Although the many kings in the Sky Tribute Square could not understand the meaning of the Sanskrit chants, they could tell that the Sanskrit chants contained a powerful Buddhist Tao. Even the peak master of Zen Sword Peak who was proficient in Buddhist Tao was shocked when he heard the Sanskrit chants. Every single word in the Sanskrit chants contained endless profoundness, as though they pointed to the true essence of Buddhist Tao, causing him to feel enlightened. The Sanskrit chants on the battlefield grew louder and louder, sounding incomparably sacred and solemn. On the battlefield, Wu Xing, Lu Tan and the other supreme true spirits were stunned. Everyone looked at each other. None of them spoke, and none of them had cultivated Buddhist Taoist techniques. It was the kings in the Sky Tribute Square who gradually noticed something amiss. The Sanskrit chants should have come from the center of the battlefield where Sword World's Su Zhu died. A king stared at the battlefield and suddenly changed his words. No, it's not dead. It's where Sword World's Su Zhu disappeared. Although the king's cultivation realms were a level higher, they were not in the fiend battlefield and could not notice many details through the giant screen. At that moment, the kings seemed to be implying something and hurriedly condensed their essence spirits to take a closer look. In their gazes, a figure sat cross-legged in the void in the center of the battlefield. It was faintly discernible and its brows were lowered. It had a dignified appearance and its lips were moving as it chanted the Sanskrit chants. Pissed. All the kings on the square sucked in a breath of cold air, their expressions horrified. That figure had black hair and green robes. It was Sword World's Su Zhu who had just died. Su Zhu isn't dead, someone exclaimed. As soon as he said that, it caused an uproar. When the kings saw this scene with their own eyes, their jaws dropped as though they had seen a ghost. Their heads buzzed and they could not react for a moment. How was that possible? That was 18 supreme mystical powers. It covered the sky and covered the sun. No movement technique or secret skill could help. How did Sword World Su Zhu dodge it? End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.